actually on board. And I think the presumption is if you qualify, you're gonna want to be on board, so you are. But that does leave out the people that don't know that it exists, you know, which maybe we can.
Yeah, that,
You're welcome.
I think that's true.
Alina's with us.
Okay. She's not gonna wanna look at me all night, but.
You're the chair. You get the.
You can look at the audience.
Yeah.
So do we want to leave it at the less than 2%? Is that okay?
Could you change it to are currently taken by less than 2% of the population? Would that, because that would cover the gap that you're talking about,
Yeah.
the people that don't know.
Yeah.
Okay, exemptions are
Utilize?
Any other corrections?
I make a motion that we accept the minutes as amended.
Second.
Aye.
Lenny?
We do a roll call vote.
We are.
So you could call everybody's name as you go around.
Yeah. Okay.
Oh.
Letty voted.
Aye.
Anthony voted.
I voted.
Aye.
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 Alina?
Aye. Oh, you're coming from a different spot.
Okay, Andy, is there anything from the select board you'd like us to know or be aware of?
One of the budgets Michelle had asked about, the general government buildings, was tabled because the janitorial contract came in way higher than budgeted. So we're looking at how to fix that.
Like way higher.
Yeah, so that's why it wasn't in the packet.
So we'll do that next week with Swayze, is that what I would?
I hope so.
Okay.
Depends on how fast we can rectify.
The other question is mosquito control. Has the select board done mosquito
We
control?
talked about mosquito. What's it in?
That's within one of the budgets, right?
Yes.
Karen told me that the select board will be doing it tomorrow night.
Oh, then we haven't done it yet.
What is that in? I thought that was part of the, it doesn't have its own line anymore.
No, I think it has its own line. It's not a
Warren up.
warrant
Not a
article,
warrant article.
Okay.
because that was what it was every year, right? We talk.
I'll let you know if I find it.
Okay.
It's a race.
In that case, we're ready to address budgets, and if there is anybody from the police department here, we'd be happy to hear what's in their budget and what they think we should know about their budget.
Do you need to move it?
Okay, thank you, I appreciate it. So you all received the worksheets, I believe, last week, is that correct, Mr.
Yes.
Chairman?
Yes.
Okay. And in reviewing them, you probably noted well, there's a couple of increases that are unavoidable, and I'll start with the easy ones, and that's fuel and maintenance costs for the cruisers. It's down towards the
It's a
bottom
number,
of the
At the top of the page.
the main output worksheet.
Oh, okay.
This one?
It is its own, okay.
Did you need something? Oh, okay.
Is that
So,
mosquitoes?
It's its own budget, its own line item.
Okay, so we haven't done it
No.
yet. Okay,
You're
sorry.
being preempted by mosquitoes.
no worries, as long as if I have a problem with mosquitoes in December, we have a problem. Anyway,
Floor is yours, chief.
so fuel, there is a formula that we used to figure this out. And first of all, let me start by saying Alina was very, very instrumental in assisting with the production of this budget. I told the select board, I had everything up here, and she made it presentable to you all folks, so thank you, Alina. But at any rate, so there is actually a formula for fuel in terms of what was used. If you navigated through that document that was provided and you went to the fuel tab, you'd note that the information used was from the U.S. Energy and Information Administration. They generally set a fuel price on what they think gas is going to be. Now, clearly last year when they set it at $2.90, they had no idea what was about to happen. So it's an advisory price. So this year, the advisory price was $3.61 a gallon. I can tell you that in dealing with the state and some other entities that are ordering fuel, they're all figuring on about $3.70. But they just did that on a guess, I think. We went with something that was established that we've used in the past.
Which is how much?
$3.61 a gallon.
Okay, and now did you do any pre-buying or no?
No, we can't for the fuel, for gas. We don't pre-buy for that. I wish we could, that would be nice. But at any rate, so, and all we do with that is we take out what the average gallons used per month are, according to our records, which is also included in that spreadsheet. And if you look at that spreadsheet on the average gallons used, it's about 888 over the course of the year. But if you look at that spreadsheet, it's sort of representative of where our department has come from since I got on board. You'll notice that the average miles driven since March have slowly increased over the course of the year, and that's two factors. I have a preference for a lot of proactive activity from our officers in terms of motor vehicle activity, but more importantly, we've been full staff for quite a while. So when there's more staff, there's more folks on the road, and hence more gallons used and miles traveled. So that's representative of what we actually have going on now. So
Chief, just to clarify, so the budget committee did not get the Excel spreadsheet, so when you refer to things, there's a PDF that Karen provided with numbered pages. So
Oh, my apologies.
That's page 28.
That's why I wasn't.
Page 28, thank you, Elena, I did not realize that, I apologize. But at any rate, so the increase on fuel, did you have a question? I'm sorry, Liz.
No, I was just showing you.
The increase on fuel is nearly $15,000, and I think anybody can realistically look at that and go, well, that's probably about right. I can't change the numbers in terms of what we use. Some of the things that we did over the course of the year to try to save in fuel, when I got here, we were using the fuel from the highway shed. As soon as gas prices went up, I asked Kendra to do a little bit of an analysis on what we're using and then what the state prices were, because we have the opportunity to go to the state sheds in either Epping or Kingston. The fuel prices were lower there for us, so I had all my folks traveling there to get their fuel, and we averaged a savings of between $500 and $700 a month in fuel for the last 4 months. So we're trying to take every opportunity we can to cut fuel costs, but I can only go so far with it.
How many miles, I just totaled up, it says average miles per year on each car, the total was about almost 150,000 miles. Is that what you expect to be doing typically going forward?
It depends on the cruiser. I actually have that figure on what we did over the course of the last year. And it really depends on the cruiser, because certain cruisers are main inline cruisers, some are secondary. So one cruiser we had this year, we put 37,000 miles on it. Another cruiser in the same line was merely 11,000. So it depends on the cruiser. But I would expect our average mileage to be very, very similar for the coming year. I didn't, gas prices were so out of whack, I didn't feel a need, just because of what we were having, is I didn't put a mileage restriction on the folks downstairs. It's something that is an option, but it also stifles morale, I found. Is when you stifle what they can do during shift, it kind of has an effect on morale, and I didn't really want to tinker with that too much. When you allow them to travel as they want, they don't really overuse it. There's a certain ebb and a flow to a shift as an officer, that if you are forced to sit for a lot of that shift and watch traffic versus being a little bit active or sit at the station doing reports, it tends to affect your output and your overall morale and confidence.
So they're designing their own shift then as they go?
Yeah, we don't have sector patrols or anything like that. We're not, quite frankly, we're not big enough to do something like that, square mileage wise. I did something like that up in Wakefield, but our square mileage up there was 64 square miles versus the 17 we've got here, so they cover it pretty well with the coverage that we've got. Another line that would warrant some explanation in terms of an increase is obviously vehicle repairs. It's up around 5,000 or almost 6,000 actually. And that's just the normal cost of doing business in terms of maintenance. We streamlined our maintenance to one person. I found that we were going to several entities to fix cruisers, and I didn't think it was productive to be sending. And one day I went to pick up 3 cruisers in 3 different towns. And I said, well, that's enough of that. So we've streamlined that. The service that we've gotten, we're very happy. I did have a good suggestion from Andy at the select board's meeting that we might actually look at our highway department regarding oil changes, but there's got to be some significant talks about what that oil service includes. Where we go now, it's basically a full service from, kicking the tires to pulling the tire off, checking the brakes and things like that. So, and if our highway department can accommodate that, then certainly we would save money there. So we're gonna look at that in the future.
The overtime is a little bit reduced. How is that happening?
Yes, a lot bit reduced, actually. Well, 2 things. I think we had too much in the budget before, that's one thing. We had a very complicated formula before I got here in terms of figuring out what overtime is necessary here. That overtime also included assistance from the sheriff's office, which we no longer take advantage of because we don't need it. We counted on their services during the day shifts because we didn't have enough officers. So we were short-staffed, so we needed the sheriff's office to cover shifts. This no longer factors in that. And knowing what I know about a department this size, I know that on average about 1,000 hours of overtime a year is sufficient. And if you look back at our pay sheets and what we announce each week at a selectmen's meeting, I think you'll find that that's gonna be very close. So that's the reduction in that overtime budget.
And what is your staff? You have full-time and part-time?
We do, we currently have 8 full-time, and we have 3 part-time officers.
2?
I'm sorry?
How many part-time? I didn't hear you.
It's actually, no, 4. Well,
Jeremy, Josh, and Bob.
yeah, 3 part-timers and 8 full-time.
So you used overtime more last year, right? Because of the coverage by the,
We did at the beginning, and then I kind of, we're still leaving a lot on the table with overtime. Year-to-date,
yeah, you only have 28,000.
I'm sorry?
You only have 28,000 year to date.
Right. So that's part of me being a little bit of a nervous Nelly, if you will. I inherited a budget I didn't create. Okay, so a lot of times when I would have normally put extra bodies on, I kind of pulled back because I really didn't know where I'd be year's end. And it's not a good look if you're blowing the budget apart at the end of the year, even though you didn't create it. And that's not just for self-preservation, that's for the integrity of the department as a whole, I think. So we were very, very conservative with overtime for most of the year. But thank you for
So
putting
you
that
do
up.
think that 42 is where
I
you
do,
where you
yes.
will end up?
Yep, I do. Because a couple of things. One of those full-timers, well, he's actually not technically full-time until January 1st. He's transitioning from part-time to full-time. He has to go to the academy for 16 weeks. So I've got to cover some of those shifts. I also have somebody that's deployed until the end of the year. So I will be operating for at least 4 out of the 12 months. I'll be operating on only 4 patrol people to cover 6 patrol people's duties. So I think I will definitely use it, yes.
So when he comes off duty, he'll come back to the police department, you're sure of that, then?
Oh, absolutely. Yep,
Okay.
yep. Yeah, and even though he's been here part-time for, I think, 3 years now, he still is required to sign a contract, a 3-year contract, to become full-time. Because we're gonna put out the resources to send him to the academy for a full-time certification.
So is 8 where you want to be as far as staffing goes and as far as full-time, 8 and 3, or are you still considering adding more?
It's not where I wanna be. My vision for this town is to have 12 full-time.
Oh, well, full.
Yep.
Hold on.
How do you get to that number?
Well, there's the old adage of the FBI numbers, which I'm sure Andy's familiar with. They recommend 2 patrol positions per 1,000 people, so that puts you at 10 patrol positions. And then you would add in the chief and the lieutenant on top of that, because we obviously occupy a full-time slot. But again, I was with a town for 11 years that was virtually the same size population-wise, and a little bit less active, actually. And 12 was a perfect number for that town. 12 allows a lot of leeway and a lot of different services that you offer. And it offers full coverage. And part of my goal here is to have 2-person coverage 24 hours a day. I think it's a very serious officer safety issue not to have 2 folks on at a time. We rely on mutual aid quite a bit, and it's great. But if I have something at the south end of town and the Kingston officers all the way down to the Plastow line, that's a good 5 to 7 minutes that my officer might be in need of somebody immediately. Versus if I've got somebody at the PD and somebody at the south end, we're talking a couple of minutes. And minutes count, minutes count. We had a situation not long ago that occurred where an officer had to go hands-on with somebody. And that somebody was a very, very big individual. And because of the time of the day it was, now the officer did wonderful with his training and defensive tactics and everything, but because of the time of day it was, he had several bystanders at that business to assist in taking this person to the ground. If that happens at 11 o'clock at night and that officer's alone, we've got issues, definite issues. I'm not saying it would have been fatal, I'm not gonna go there, but the outcome would not have been as good as it was, and I can almost guarantee that. So that's really why I want to move up to the 12-person department, to be able to offer 2 officers 24 hours a day and to offer all the services that go with it.
So typically now, the officer handling the night shift is alone in his vehicle on patrol.
Generally from the hours of, it can be anywhere from 10 p.m. or to 12 down to 6 a.m. I have an officer alone.
Does that make any sense?
No, I do not have double coverage on the midnight shift at all. Now, I have on Friday and Saturday nights, I'll have multiple on for the evening shift. And that might go all the way till midnight, but usually around midnight, it's kind of a ghost town. And unfortunately, that's the way it is on the surrounding towns, and I don't want to be like that. I want to have 2 people on. I think it's imperative. I'm sorry, did you have something?
I would have 2 on night before I have that many on days. And you've got 8 members, you can't get 2 on nights? I find that,
Well, we can, but when you put 2 people on midnights, okay, so you've got 7 midnights. So there's, you need 7 midnight shifts, there's 14 shifts. That occupies 2 officers completely, right? And then I have Monday, then I have the rest of the evening shift, which is another 14 shifts, and then I have the rest of the day shift, 14 shifts. It's just not, and the call volume is not as great from, say, 2 a.m. to 6 a.m. to justify 2 to take away from the large sheer call volume we have on the evening shift. So we're kind of hedging our bets with the call volume, but I'd rather not hedge bets when it comes to officer safety, is basically what I'm saying.
And that would so you wouldn't necessarily want 12 full-time people, you'd want 12 full-time equivalents between part-time and full-time?
No, I'd want 12 full-time people, yeah. And that would certainly, those part-time folks I have right now, they've got other full-time jobs, and they're not always available. These part-timers that we have bailed us out over the last couple of years. They work their tails off, and I think sometimes to the detriment of their other positions and their families, because they know the position that Brentwood's been in. But, I wouldn't need I'm not gonna let any part-timers go, but I wouldn't need as much part-time help with that full staff like that.
So that the part-timers would be more to fill in vacations?
yes.
stuff.
More for what a part-timer is rather than a
Yeah.
regularly scheduled shift.
And the academy has kind of left the New Hampshire police world in limbo, because they've not scheduled a part-time academy, so we don't know if that's gonna be something going forward in the future, that we can even hire and train part-time people.
The last word I got, I talked to one of the staff at the academy actually over the weekend, and I said, and I asked about the part-time. And the position of the academy is, well, let's see who's interested and if we're gonna have one or not. That's not a good, we used to be able to start our clock by February and August for part-time academies, we just can't do it anymore.
Are they trying to discourage the use of part-timers?
Well, the problem with the part-time world is they need 200 hours of training and full-timers need almost 700 hours. Yet they have the same police powers. So there's a very large faction of the population, myself to some extent included, that I think we need more training for our part-time officers. But there's always a dollar amount attached to that too, so. But anyway, I got a little off topic there. Did that answer your question about where I would like to go with staffing?
Yes, it did.
Okay, thank you.
It looks like you eliminated the investigator,
Yeah, we don't need that.
so there'll be no more investigations, is that?
No, we have officers to do investigations. I looked at that line, I said, well, what are we using it for? We have officers who do the investigating, and very well, I might add. So no, I got rid of that. I think there was another line in there that I left $1 in there in case we need some world-renowned investigator to come in and recreate something, but I don't anticipate
Yeah,
that.
but I think court fees was maybe the other one that you were.
Court fee, yeah, that's another one that we really, when my folks go to court, they get paid. And it comes out of salaries, whether it be overtime salaries, or part of their, if I have a day shift person that's got court that day, they get paid anyway, so I didn't really see a need for that. Let's see.
So on the salary side, it's the 5% COLA plus 2% merit. Do we always do that? Or is that just a this year thing?
What do you mean?
Do we always do COLA plus merit?
No.
No, that's the one-time thing they've done across the board.
No, we did it last year too.
And we didn't do anything, this is the first, I believe, correct me if I'm wrong.
Not across the board, but I
We
think.
never across the board ever did anything what we've done this year.
No, but I think police did it last year.
Well, fifth place, but the
Yeah, but
entire-
I think last year we were resetting the rates.
For
Similar to
town
what was
hall,
done with fire.
police have been reset.
I believe 2020 was the reset
Yeah.
on police from what I've been told. I can't speak to that obviously from experience, but that's what I was told.
Chief of Cherry did the reset, so that's how long it's been.
Go by
2
chiefs.
chiefs ago.
Go by
2 chiefs ago, yes.
Hope we won't have to do that
So
anymore.
my understanding of one of the discussions on the select board with regard to the merit increase was to bring it in line with the sort of retention and other bonuses that happen with the fire department and police. So it seems duplicative to me.
So the chief brought forward a whole different program, which I'm sure he's gonna start to talk about in a minute when we get into salaries.
Yes.
That's gonna be currently unique to the police department, but I'll bring it forward for all town employees for retention, but he's starting it with the police department.
I might as well start right there then. At any rate, so, actually, let me one other line item that I wanted to bring attention to was the uniform allowance. I cut that by almost $6,000 too. We didn't need $27,000 for this year, because that 27 was to hire, I think, 3 people last year. I was one of them. So, clearly, well, I hope they're not rehiring me, so. So I took some out of that line, to offset that, anyway. So, salaries. So, the salary line, if you notice, is a 9.48 increase. You can see that. The total is nearly $43,000. And I'll separate that out into 2 categories. One is the category that was approved by the selectmen. which was the 5% COLA, as well as up to a 2.5% merit increase. So with the merit increase, we were given a grading system on where people would fall, you know, between 1% to 2.5%. And my folks, with the numbers the way they did, they all fell within the 2% range. There was a range, so they all fell in it. So that was the 2% merit increase for all the folks. And the 5% was approved by the selectmen based on, well, I think among other things, what the social security index was this year, which was up around 8.6%. So even given the increase in social security, I think the overall town maximum increase on this would have been 7.5%. The PD was at 7%. So we started there, and it was very appreciative that the town recognized that we need to, you know, while we have taxpayers that are experiencing the same inflationary things, we also have employees that are experiencing that as well. So that was great, but I'm trying to take it a step further. In police work, generally, a new hire gets a 3-year contract. So the goal is to hang on to it for at least 3 years, and sometimes that's like hanging on to a cat by the tail. It really is, especially in today's market where it's so competitive. We have police departments. Now, the average contract on a 3-year police officer is anywhere between $15,000 and $20,000. So we'll just take an $18,000 contract, $6,000 a year, $500 a month. So if you leave after 2 years, you owe the town $6,000. Problem that a lot of PDs, especially this size, are experiencing is you have larger PDs, and even sometimes the same size as this, are offering these ridiculous sign-on bonuses. There's a PD offering it's a $21,000 sign-on bonus. $21,000 just to come over there and work for them. You got to be a certified officer. So let's say I hire somebody tomorrow. Well, let's take Bob Gagnon, who's going to come on board full-time. Everybody is aware of that. He could literally get out of the academy and quit the very next day and still come out ahead on a financial. I'm not talking about moral, ethical.
Buy out the contract, it's still.
He could have Wyndham pay him his 21 grand. He could give the town of Brentwood $18,000, pocket $3,000, and go to Wyndham and probably make $4 more an hour and say, thanks, guys. How do I compete with that? Really, how does a smaller PD compete with something like that? Well, what they do is they try to create a situation in which there's favorable working conditions and a competitive wage, and you have to have both of them. You've got to. Now, I've done what I think is a good amount of things to try to change the atmosphere and the culture here, to try to create that atmosphere that they want to work in. And now I've got to start working on the pay part. And back to that 3-year. I don't want to just hold on to somebody for 3 years. Because when they have a 3-year contract, they start looking right around year 2. Because you figure if it takes about 6 months to get onto a PD through the hiring process, right? So they start looking at year 2, and they go through the process, and then at 2.5 years, they come to me and say, Chief, I found a new job, I'm going to go. And I go to the selectmen, I say, well, this officer's got 6 months left on their contract, which is the equivalent of about $3,000. Are you going to pay legal fees to go after $3 grand? Probably not. So you see how that 3 years is already now shortened down to 2.5, maybe even a little bit more. My goal is to try to hang on to the 5 and the 6 and the 7 year. And one of those ways is longevity pay that we don't traditionally think of. Longevity, we usually think of 10 and 15 year longevity pay. I'm talking about at year 3 and year 4 and year 5. So part of this increase, well, the 7%, the COLA, and that's worth about $24,000 if you break it down in dollars. So that means about $20,000 in salary increase that I'm looking to do. And part of that is that longevity. I have 2 officers next year that are going to come up on their 3-year contract. They could walk out the door. Make $3, $4, $5 an hour more at a bigger department, maybe even a department in similar size.
But I thought you got your wages up to competitive to the area, so why would that be a problem?
Because they're not entirely competitive, because everybody else is doing the same thing. If you go to Kingston right now, most of their guys that are even less than 5 years are making over $32 an hour. They have a sergeant who just was promoted to sergeant this year, who's got 6 years on, making $80,000 a year.
Okay, but when do you stop trying to go over and over? Do we have, if we have a serious crime problem, which I would question, you have to keep going up and up and up. When do you say we can't just be the best and make the most money and keep the most people? We had people 16 years and retired out of here in very recent history. So we had a long-term staff, and then we had a problem.
It's a different economy too.
But, okay, but I mean, when do you say enough?
Well, I'll tell you how that works, okay? First of all, let me address the crime. Okay, in the last 5 years, our arrests are up 41%. So we're busier, we're much, much busier, okay? So there is an increase in crime, whether it's motor vehicle, whether it's burglaries, whether it's thefts, whatever, but it's up 41%. So I have to account for that, and I've got to provide quality officers. So what happens? Let's say I meet my goals and I'm now starting to retain people for 5, 6, 7, 8 years. Out of 8 employees, getting a 16-year veteran is maybe 1 in 8, probably. That's just the law of averages, maybe 2 in 8 if we're lucky. Okay, so that's how you do start cycling those. We don't start people at $35 an hour, right? We reward them for staying a little bit longer. I can't continue to give people the increases I want at year 3 all the way through year 10. I can't do that. So there is a point of no return. There is a point where we go, okay, time out, folks, right? Because even if I had a pay chart that's a 10-year pay chart, you got to get to the end of the pay chart at some point, right? And then you go, well, let's just give them 1.5% just to give them something every year, right? That happens. So at some point, that does change. But if we stop revolving people at 3 years and make it more of a 5 to 7 year, and I don't want them to go at 7 years, believe me, then those salaries are actually going to come back down, or the taxpayer dollar is going to come back down because we start people at a newer rate again. And that's just the law of averages when you work through any industry. Right.
And sometimes it's to an advantage because you're starting a younger, teachers, for example, very often they'll let a teacher, they would much rather have a teacher that, it's here and here because they got the longevity, and the longer they're there, they're making more money, and they're not doing any more,
That's right. Let's face it, I mean.
It isn't necessarily a plus.
No, I mean, let's face it, if you kept the sergeant and I on for another 20 years, our salaries are gonna be pretty high if you're giving us even a, right? We gotta go sometime, right? Now, but I don't want it to be after 3 years is my point. So why can't, when I retain those folks to the 6 and 7 year mark, this town is getting a better quality officer because they've got that much more experience in the town of Brentwood too. I'm not just grabbing a 7-year person out of Epping. I've got somebody who's been here for 6, 7 years in Brentwood. That's the quality we want to provide, and that's the model that we want to provide for the town of Brentwood. So when they've been here for 3 years, part of that reward system is to give them an extra raise after 3 years as part of their permanent salary.
And you're talking a raise over and above what this town just gave for the 5% goal and the 2.5% raise. You want to give them more than that?
Yes, I do. Yes.
So the fire department has something like this, but it's nowhere near that size. I don't know if you've seen it.
Yes, but he also said he wanted to adjust that too.
Again, if I don't keep up, there are certain areas where I want to be the
Yeah,
Joneses, but if I can't
you think
keep
that's
up.
true, but.
Well, actually, my experience tells me
It
it's true.
doesn't always work that way.
It doesn't always, but we've never tried it, so how are we gonna know if it doesn't work in
Well,
Brentwood?
this particular year, we're spending a fortune.
Yep.
Of money we really don't have, because we're taking it from one pocket, taking it out of another. And with these salaries, once you do them, next year when we don't have all this found money, we're not gonna have that, and the taxpayers are gonna, next year's tax bill is gonna look like something like the national debt, because all these big raises that we just gave this year, and we're getting COLA money, which came out of our other pocket, and next year at this time, your tax bill is gonna go up tremendous, because you still have to pay those raises to those people that you gave. So it doesn't make sense to keep adding and adding and adding this year, because
Sure.
we think we're not having it, because it's only a one-time thing. And never mind what's happening in the country with the inflation, which I happen to be old enough to have been around when the inflation took over.
Right.
And a house mortgage was 14% when I bought my house in New Hampshire. I have been there and done that. And what you're all doing right now is spending money that you found a little place to cover. Now, next year, those salaries, a bonus is one thing, give them a bonus, that'd be fine. but don't give them a raise, because then you have to pay, you have more insurance, you have more taxes, and you have more everything, and it's forever. And then you have to get the increase over that next year, because they need COLA next year. You're asking our people to just keep going nuts, and over a 1-year little window we have here, that's gonna change violently a year from now. And then we're gonna have, this town will be in big trouble. We're not gonna be able to pay our bills. People and the town.
Let me ask you this. So what I'm asking for in total, and no matter which pocket we take it out of, is $42,000 for increases in salaries. Would you rather pay that, or if I lose 2 officers next year who are out of contract, I'm gonna ask the town for $80,000 to train them to be 1-year officers? Because it
You've
taught,
already gone from, last that I knew was 5, and then it was 6, now it's 8, not counting your part-time. You're just going up and up and up. I think you think that maybe Brentwood just has an unlimited amount of money.
no,
So-
quite the
so
opposite.
Chief, just, I mean, I'm sorry you're having to suffer through this. You're like the last in the long line of.
Oh, no, I
Yeah,
totally
You're all
get
my
it.
that's
people.
true.
I knew
Right,
I was,
mean,
I
so
knew I
some
was
of
sitting.
this is just kind of blown.
I
out
knew
from
I
you.
was sitting when I
Spending-
saw the
already spending,
schedule.
like,
I knew it. When I saw the schedule, I said, well, I'm the last guy of the list. I totally get it
That's
that
true.
everybody before me this year has come in and said, I need. I completely get that, completely understand it and respect that. Because each department head has to advocate for their own department.
Of course.
Because if they don't, nobody's going to. You're not gonna just go, hey, would you like a pile of money? And this doesn't happen like that.
Yeah, exactly.
But I'm also
And I don't
trying-
mean to be picking on you
I
in any
completely-
way
I
or
don't
shape
take
or
it that
form.
way.
I'm just telling you, in general, that's the situation.
Don't take it that way, and I don't take it that way. But I'm also trying to save, without sounding ridiculous, at the end of the day, I'm trying to save the taxpayers' money. Okay, because when you have a staff that is always 1 to 2 to 3 year staffers, the amount of money that is spent on teaching and learning and missed
I'm arguing with
opportunities,
that, but historically, we didn't have that. This
but
is-
you do now. That's the problem,
But
and I have to deal
But
with it.
that's what I'm saying. You're trying to save the town something that we never had before. So it's a little bit new, and
Sure.
it's been such a dramatic change since you took over. And I think you've done a wonderful job.
So
Don't
thank you.
stand around
Appreciate
that.
Sure.
But it's just the immense increase in everything. You know, and we haven't even gotten to your police station yet. So,
Well, I'm not asking for that next year, so.
thank goodness.
That's 24.
Anyway, that's just my opinion, is like, you know what they say.
Yep.
$40,000 to bring a new patrolman into the unit is, you know, that's equal to what you're asking for here for raises across for the whole department, so.
To be fair though, fully loaded, it's not, right? So once you start adding in retirement and FICA and stuff like that, it's more than that.
Yeah, that's just a salary number, that's not all
Right.
Well, even if you put in New Hampshire retirement in this equation, the total would be $80,000, which is 2 officers. Now, let me talk about the cost that you can't measure when you have to replace officers, okay? Because there
You're
are.
good at this, and don't go,
There are, the cost that you have when
it's
you,
obvious you've done this before.
no, when you've got to replace officers, it's a hit to morale. Because you have folks that are finally settled in their role. And then you say, well, look, buddy, you gotta go back to the patrol role because we lost another one. And before you know it, the eyes roll, and before you know it, we're replacing people even when we're paying them well, because the environment that they're working in has turnover. Turnover is a cancer to a PD. It truly is. You know, I once had a said turnover, and he kind of disagreed more. Now, every now and then, somebody, oh, I don't know, they're gonna leave, but we don't have that right now. We don't, and I don't anticipate that. You know, but, and then the people that have to train this new officer, that's part of that. A brand new officer that's not certified is not useful to me one bit for normally at least 9 months to a year. They can't even do anything because they always have to have another officer with them because you can't be alone until you're certified. And even when you're certified, you still got to do FTO and everything else. So the cost alone is not just that mere $40,000 to get them through the academy and to outfit them and all that other stuff. It goes well beyond that. And I see you smiling. It's kind of getting there,
You're
but
singing to the choir.
I know.
I've
But
been
anyway.
there, I've done this, I know, these are all the arguments we get all the time, but we have to look at the rest of the picture.
Completely understand.
And they're not just you, like you said, that's really the truth. You're the last one, we've just gotten this fantastic stories about everything.
These aren't stories, these are true.
No, I know.
I know, but no, I respect and understand you have a fiduciary and a financial responsibility to the residents of Brentwood. I completely get that. And I'm sympathetic to the fact that, you know, some residents are on a fixed income and that their whole raise is gonna be 8.6%. I get that too. But, you know, running a town is not it's not a business, that's the problem that we have here, right? It's not a business, but it's not. you
Just
know,
to
it's-
move on a little bit, what's your plan to go from 8 to 12? How would you see that
Actually,
happen?
can I ask a question before we go that far?
Yes.
What are the average salaries of officers?
Here or elsewhere?
Here.
Here,
What are we paying them?
right now, let me just, I don't wanna mistake it, I wanna make sure.
No, current. What
Well, we
pay?
do, but, yeah,
Yeah.
It's gonna be these numbers from last year.
I just want to close.
so right now, Michelle, the average salary of the full-time officers, just looking at this without doing complete numbers, is right around $25.75 an hour.
That's just salary, not benefits.
575.
That's just the straight hourly rate. That doesn't include anything about benefits or anything. And again, that's just a rough average from looking at 5 people on a piece of paper right
It's
now.
about 51.
So if I can put that in perspective to this committee, okay? Do you know what the library director is making? Her salary's gonna be $37.67 an
Yeah,
hour.
I know.
That is a sin.
I,
That our police officers get paid that much less than our library director? That's where the problem is, not with this department.
didn't say it was a problem with him, I said in general.
It's just crazy. Have even, what did you say? Even the assistant director's making over gonna be making over $30 an hour. Yeah, there's a strange set of priorities in this town.
So
Got that right.
the problem's not necessarily that. You should pay people what the position requires. The problem is that they came in with a study, and then we paid them $10,000 more than their own study said they should be paid.
I'm not sure it's gonna be helpful to rehash the library budget right
Well, we can reopen the library budget.
now. We can, but
We can-
let's
we
talk
can
about the
come-
budget that we have in front of us.
We can come back to that. Let's stay with the police at the moment.
Sorry, like I said, you're the
No,
last
I was
in
enjoying the
line.
break, believe me. No, I get it, folks, I get it. So, yeah, I'm sorry, Michelle, did that answer your question?
Yes, sir.
All right.
Okay, you came with the sergeant here tonight, whom I met briefly at the library. Speaking of the library. But maybe you could introduce him, or he can introduce himself.
Oh, I'm sorry, I
to the people
apologize,
that have
folks.
not met him here.
You mind if I go around the room?
Go ahead.
Hi, I'm Justin.
Hi,
Nice to
you.
meet you. Justin, nice to meet you.
While he's doing
Nice to
that,
see you again.
Sergeant Doty came to us from Lee PD.
Andy, always a pleasure. I'm Justin, nice. Justin, nice to meet you.
Been an officer since 14. Came to us, he was a sergeant with Lee. Graciously came here to fill the much-needed number 2 position. Because I was going crazy without a number 2 for a few months there, so. And he's here because he needs to know what's going on. I never had that benefit coming up through the ranks to know what a budget looked like until I was chief, and I said, here's your budget. I said, what the heck is that? So he needs to know what all this process is, and I apologize, I did not introduce him properly to everybody.
So so Justin's gonna move to lieutenant, is it, at some point?
Yes, yep.
And what are his duties now, and what will they be as a lieutenant?
His duty right now is split somewhat between patrol and administrative. He oversees the evidence officer right now very closely. That's a project that I knew was completely necessary. Right when I got here, evidence room is where a lot of PDs can get themselves really in trouble. So he's been overseeing quite a bit of that. He's taken on a great secondary supervisory role with the guys. And I only say guys because we don't have any female cops downstairs, so I'm not.
Yeah.
But he's taken on a great supervisory role with them. He's sort of he's the one that they'll call first on scene if there's a question about some things, which is kind of nice to have. His duties will move more administratively as a lieutenant, though. He'll still keep those supervisory roles, but he'll be more involved in scheduling, training coordination, which is a very key component of the PD. We have a lot of training that we want to get these folks involved in, so he'll oversee that. He will oversee any detective work that goes on, oversee all the offense reports that come through, which is where the investigative reports all come from, so. His role will increase as he becomes a lieutenant.
Justin, what's your training been?
My training. So on top of the, obviously the standard police academy that we all go to, throughout the past, we'll say 9 years, I've taken every opportunity for training that I can. I've been an FTO, field training officer, for the past 6 years. On top of that, I've gone through numerous supervisory course trainings. I continue to look for supervisory course trainings. I've taken numerous investigative school trainings, everything from simple fingerprinting to, helping with like downloading a computer, stuff like that. And then just the minute stuff, report writing classes, because as he said, I'm overseeing the offense reports right now, so when the officers submit a report to me, it's important that it's written well, documented well. That way when it goes to court, if it goes to court, stuff like that. So if I had my resume here, I could certainly share all my certifications and trainings with you, but I don't have it on top of my, top of my head.
Okay.
How long were you over at Lee?
I was in Lee for like 4.5 years, and I was up in Farmington before that.
This place is better than Lee, right?
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
There's only one right answer to that.
Yeah. I'm still very close with the department, Lee. I do their like firearms training and stuff like that with the chief over there, and they're going through a staffing crisis that, knock on wood, we're not having here. So I'm doing the use of force training and the firearms training for their new officers and stuff like that. So
After I offered him the job as chief up there, I tried to offer him more money. And thankfully, he came to join us in Brentwood, so it's been a very good match for us. We work very well together. We hold a lot of the same philosophies.
Do you live in Lee?
I do not. I live in Raymond. Yep.
Okay. She's still there?
Yeah, I was just making sure I still had power.
Gotcha.
So one of the holidays you have listed here is June 20th. Now, that's sometimes Father's Day, it's also my son's birthday, but I don't think that's the reason you have it as a holiday.
It's a federal holiday now. It's Juneteenth.
The Board of Selectmen adopted the federal holiday of,
Juneteenth?
yes.
Okay, got it. I thought that was the 19th, but it's okay.
It is, but I think the 19th may be on a Sunday or a weekend this week.
Saturday's the 20th.
Okay.
Oh, no, it's wrong, 17th.
Okay. Also, on that page below, there's a frequency table.
Hold on. What page are you on, Jeff?
The page at which the top is, I don't know, it's not numbered, but it's the same page that has the holidays. Looks like this.
Alright.
That's the general page,
Let me
yeah.
scroll there.
Okay.
This one.
In the frequency table, it has months for the quarter, it has 4, and for the trimester, it has 3. I'm thinking a quarter would normally be 3 months.
Those tables are not, they're just used, they're formulas that would use different person. If it doesn't go, and you would guarantee to have to print those, she printed those by mistake.
She said that's how her spreadsheet works, is by using those
They
numbers.
are numbered pages. Some of those tables don't go anywhere. This is what they are just for the previous sheet.
So we weren't supposed to,
Jim and I will work on a worksheet that will be built just for him, and it's gonna be very straightforward. This is just what was done is Chief took last year's worksheet that was built, as you remember, for a different chief with different assumptions, different everything. And then, actually, 99% of the budget was billed out by chief, and he dissected that whole worksheet, which again wasn't, and then I've assisted with the payroll page, just quickly, but we didn't touch anything else, and we've agreed that, if further help needed, I would totally, build out a separate worksheet just for, to go forward. So that these pages, unnumbered pages, they're not supposed to be printed. They're just general assumptions that some of them don't go anywhere.
Okay,
Thank you, Alina.
well, if somebody can just take a look at the frequency table and see if the number of months is what you want it to be, that's all. I don't mean, doesn't have to be now, but.
I have a question. This is awkward, because I'm guessing there's only one person in administration wages line. I noticed that the percent increase in that line is lower, and it seems like everyone else's is that,
Well, that's about right, that's,
no, it's not gonna, okay,
talk about the overall increase?
yes.
Yeah. Let me just get to that. Part of that is because there was a little bit more allotted last year between myself and Chief Sawyer, who was here. So the last year's numbers combined are two. And then I came in afterwards and but yeah, so that would skew that number a little bit, is
Okay.
what that, is all that was, yeah.
So it's not indicative of you
There was an
getting,
overlap.
it's not indicative of him getting
Less
less of
money.
a raise than.
Right, yes, correct.
Other questions, comments? Is there a motion?
I can't find it.
I'll move the police budget $1,106,672.
Second,
Thank you.
Okay,
I'm trying.
let's vote. Letty,
Aye.
Anthony,
Aye.
aye,
Aye.
Aye.
Alina,
Aye.
and I'm an aye. So the motion passes.
Chief, I want to thank you for your effort to actually make reductions in some lines, because that's not been wholly seen in a lot of other
Oh, well,
budgets, so I appreciate that.
It was my pleasure, actually. I gotta thank you folks. It means a lot, not just to me, but the folks downstairs, so. And if I'm smiling, it's because I'm happy with just the way it went, you know what I mean? So thank you, and thank you for being tough. I knew I could count on it.
of course you could.
It was close when we almost
Don't
didn't
go
get a
anywhere
motion.
yet.
Yeah.
ACO could take us.
Oh, this ACO budget's
Yeah,
gonna
yeah.
kill you guys.
Ooh, yikes.
Okay, nothing was expended in the ATO, and I'm curious, is there a balance in the K-9 fund?
Two different topics.
Two different, but I can address the K-9 one, because it was in the,
One of which I can't learn about.
No, we could,
Okay,
the K-9 would be under the police budget. I had just brought up ACO.
okay.
but I can answer the K-9 question. I can answer the K-9 question real quick, because I know it was on the other budget, but Officer Kelly did an amazing job this year, raising more than what we needed in the $20,000. So rather than add a line into the, or request funds into the existing K-9 line, I made the decision to keep it zeroed out for the year, and we will fund the K-9 program from the donations left over. And that was over and above the purchase of the dog, the training of the dog, and the outfitting of the cruiser. So we would have enough in the donations to fund the K-9 program for this year. Next year, I'm gonna ask for a whopping $2,500 in that line. That's what I ran my K-9 budget on in Wakefield for the year, so I anticipate.
Where is the doggy now?
The dog is still with the handler. The dog will be picked up, I believe, in the beginning of March.
We're counting down the days too, don't we?
Counting down the days, and then Officer Kelly will go into training, I believe, April 10th.
Yeah, somewhere right around there.
Very exciting, very exciting.
Wonderful.
Do most departments our size have canines?
Yes and no.
It's funny you say
I
that
was
because
just wondering what,
a lot of smaller agencies, even smaller than us, are actually getting canines. I mean, you look at the chief in New Durham, he's had a canine up there for
Yeah.
30 years.
Even East Kingston with a
Yeah.
3-person department had one, you know.
We had one, the great one, we had an unfortunate situation.
Yeah, well, this one isn't gonna hopefully bite you, it's just a,
Yeah, but
a
that
nice
dog,
one.
it was
I
the
know, I'm
dog's
teasing,
fault.
I'm teasing. No, and I wanted the lab for a couple of reasons, but, it's just much more community oriented. You know, the officer can take the dog into the school and, you know, or take it to the nursing home, and I don't have to cringe, wondering what might happen.
You don't have to put a muzzle on them.
Yeah, and they're just a better kind of,
Yeah, better temperament, yeah. And the chief will be much more comfortable in his own building with the lab too. I've been bit twice by police canines.
So the animals are running together for me here at the moment, but
No worries.
coming back to the animal control officer,
Yes,
which we're apparently funding for $9 or something like that. Who's handling?
so that's my budget, or the police department's budget, if you will. So there's 9 different sections in the animal control budget from, you know, from, I think, mileage and, so what I'm gonna do is, it's, the aggregate of that line is normally $6,000. And I'm just gonna make $1 in each of the categories, so that we don't zero out that budget altogether. At current needs, I don't feel as though we need a K-9 budget for the 23 season.
ACO.
I mean, ACO. So you got me thinking now.
Yeah.
That's why you brought me.
Who's gonna do that for us?
The officers are handling it now, and they're doing okay. But in the future, with the new building, that's going to be a function of the PD again, so that's why I don't want to abolish it completely. So kind of stay tuned on that one, but for the 23 budget, I'm just leaving it at the $9, and so that saves, you know, another $5,000 or $6,000.
Discussion, questions?
motion for $9.
Second.
That was a bit easier, huh, Melissa?
Take a vote. Letty?
Aye.
Anthony?
Aye.
Aye.
Lois?
Aye.
Amy? Alina?
Aye.
Aye.
And I'm an aye. Motion passes. So thank you.
Thank you, folks, I appreciate the time, I really do, thank you very much.
Nice to meet all of you officially and see.
Yeah, sorry about that.
I look forward to working with you all throughout the town and
Thank you, Elena.
see you the next time. Hopefully before next budget season.
Next is general government.
I thought that was not,
No, government buildings.
Government buildings.
got it, okay.
Have a nice night, drive safe today.
Thank you.
It's cold in here, is it me?
No, it's cold.
General government.
We're saving heat, I guess, huh?
So the big changes to general government is long-range planning.
Yeah.
Which increased to $7,750, which is for, economic development.
That's this one?
Yes,
And what,
that's where the 7,007
you wanna,
comes from. 7,749.
What have they actually done?
So far, they've just done they've completed a business list for the town of Brentwood. They've done a couple surveys on what people would like to see for businesses brought to Brentwood.
They're gonna have a breakfast.
They plan on doing quarterly breakfasts next year, which is part of that budget.
breakfast for who?
The business owners, to try to, during the meeting, I asked John Morgan if they were gonna try to do more of a Chamber of Commerce where the businesses supported this organization. And he said that's what the future plan is to turn this more into a Brentwood Chamber of Commerce. But the idea is to figure out how to bring more businesses to Brentwood. And that's what the committee's trying to work on.
I have a random question, not to put you on the
You
spot,
wanna look
Andy.
at-
Has the select board said no to anything this year?
No,
No?
I didn't think so.
Right.
we,
It's not,
said no to library and asked them to bring back 3 separate budgets and at a $6,000 difference on the
Up or
budgets we
down?
were looking at, it really didn't make sense
and you
to
said,
single
and you
them
said
out.
yes to them too.
But was it up or down?
It was $6,000. Between the 2 budgets was $6,000.
So you cut something from their,
No, we asked
No, they didn't.
them to come back with 3 different versions of the budget, cutting wages, and the difference was $6,000.
Between the lowest to the highest.
okay.
So they
So
gave him
we
the
went-
6,000.
We went with
Which
the
one did we go with?
trustees' recommendation,
Did we
because
go,
the trustees were the elected authority of the library.
Because they had such increase.
which, so you had 3 separate versions, lowest to highest, which one did we go with?
The one that was proposed by the trustees, which was the highest.
Because going with the lowest would only save you $6,000.
Right.
6,000 here, 6,000 there,
Mm.
adds up.
Hmm.
I don't think the selectmen know the word no. They think it's. I
The
think
selectmen
everybody should-
realize that we have great employees and we need to keep them, and that they have problems paying their bills too. We all don't own multiple houses and
What is the miscellaneous contracts in that?
miscellaneous expenses.
No,
It's
miscellaneous contracts.
456.
$1,000.
Good question. It was level funded, so it was never discussed.
I would like to know what that is. Because the question to Karen about what contracts we had in town was that we had none, so I'm curious about that.
I don't think that was the correct answer, because we have multiple contracts in town.
Yeah.
I think the question was, how many contracts do we have with volunteer associations?
I would still like to know what that is.
Postage is up.
Postage is up. I bought a book of stamps for mailing Christmas cards, and they're at 60 cents
So it's literally
a
because
stamp now.
stamps, like literal
Yes.
actual, it's
And
not that we're.
they're
That
going-
and
they're going
we're
up
sending out
again.
more tax bills and registrations and,
Don't know what-
so I believe meters at 57 cents as opposed to if you buy a stamp at 60.
Mhm. Remember those forever stamps? Those seem like a great idea
I
now.
know. If you bought a bunch of them.
I know, should have bought more.
And the town events, that's going up substantially,
Yes.
so
So, employee events were pretty much stifled because of COVID. So the town events would be like a holiday party. In
Benny.
previous years, all town employees and boards were invited to a luncheon for Christmas season.
So that's not, the-
And this year, they actually did a team building event with all the employees in town. So that's what the increase is
Do we
for.
need, do we have a new oldest resident? I see there's Boston Post Cane on here.
We have trouble giving away the Boston Post game.
nobody
Really?
wants it, because
I
then
know.
you kick the bucket.
Yeah, it's kinda like receiving
Well,
the
'cause
the
do you-
saber of Satan.
Do you do the thing where
No, it's, don't give me that,
the
'cause I'm not
official
gonna-
one stays here and they get a replica?
Yes.
Is that what it is?
One out in the hall, isn't
That's,
Yeah.
that's
That's
the real one.
The real one, and
They don't give away the real one.
it? No, I would think not.
And that is really true about that life thing, though, that it's historically been that way.
Yep.
It's
well,
really-
you are the oldest person.
You are
Yeah,
the
right.
person in town.
I mean,
It does,
It
it
does
does.
kinda
your
check
odds
out.
are not with you well.
What is the mileage, so who does this cover, if it doesn't cover some other department already? You know, like mileage reimbursement and,
that must be their travel to,
Bank, it's, I believe it's covers town clerks, bank trips and stuff like that.
why doesn't it go under the town clerk's
I don't
line?
know.
Does the town clerk have a line for that?
I don't believe
Maybe
so.
not, but I'm just, is sort of like the dump fund, everything that doesn't go anywhere else gets thrown in this one.
Town clerk does not have a line for that. That's probably why, neither does tax collector.
And then previous years, the building inspector also took from that when we didn't have the vehicle or the vehicle wasn't running.
So does this include the vehicle that he's using, or is that under his?
That's under his now for maintenance, because he got an actual vehicle that works from the police department.
Hey, Michelle, I missed the part you asked about the question about the town newsletter.
She did not ask about town.
I didn't ask about
Oh.
the town newsletter,
Well,
I
then I'm
asked
gonna
about the
ask.
other contracts, the
Okay.
miscellaneous contract line.
It says town contracts. Is that the Brentwood newsletter?
No, there is a separate line for town newsletter.
That's what I'm reading.
So miscellaneous contracts is above the town
Right there.
newsletter, two separate lines.
Am I missing something? I
I'm
don't
not
see
sure.
the other one. The
Right
town
abo-
newsletter
right
is the
above it.
17,005.
Seven five.
Right
Yeah.
above that line is miscellaneous contracts, which is what I asked, what is that?
Okay, so now I'm asking now, the town, it says town newsletter, and that money, as far as I know, that was what the current Brentwood newsletter was putting in, is that correct?
That's what that's what the Brentwood newsletter asked for.
Right.
It was not approved for the Brentwood newsletter.
Right.
The selectmen made that very clear.
But I'm asking now, because it's under town newsletter, should it be the Brentwood newsletter?
No. It
No,
is
because the line
for-
item is town newsletter.
Okay, that's what I'm asking. At least I think that's what I'm asking. I'm confused. But that's basic, right now, based on the bill submitted by the Brentwood newsletter, is that correct?
Correct.
Correct.
Okay, that's all I want to know. Sometimes I'm a little slow.
And the change in that is because 3 months was funded by warrant article.
No, 3 months,
So,
the other months were funded by warrant article. Only 3 months were in the,
Oh, yes, I'm sorry.
so that number from last year was
Three
just.
quarters were funded by the warrant article.
Yeah.
1 month, 1 quarter was funded by the
Right,
budget.
because I looked at
That's
that
why-
earlier, I'm like, why is that so low? They gave us the, and then I was like, no, it was warrant
I meant
article.
quarters, not
So-
months.
can we zero out vehicle repairs in this general government budget?
They want $500 for what vehicle?
Well, that's what I'm.
Yeah,
that's
what
I'm-
vehicle is that
I'm making
covering?
sure that the building inspector has,
Oh, has his own.
Does he have a vehicle?
yes,
He has a vehicle, but he might not have a line.
He has travel and mileage, he doesn't have vehicle repair.
We probably can't change that now.
What do you wanna do, eliminate the line?
I guess I want everything to be tidily in its department. Kinda like that you were talking about with the mileage. So if that is for code enforcement vehicle, is that what that would be?
yes. I would assume, because that's the only vehicle that we have not.
Right.
Yes?
Yes,
When we get audited, like I understand that they will normally auditors pick a materiality threshold, right? And that's a percent of, for a company would be, percent of revenue, And then they essentially, they do more due diligence looking at anything above that threshold. And then anything that's kind of below the threshold, they test one or two things. So, can we find out what that threshold is from our auditors? Because it seems to me that many of these things, they journal entry, that I know for sure. Because at the end, when we get the statements, financial statements, they put journal entries to reclassify things, just in bulk. But for me, it was like, I totally agree, writing it, right? I couldn't see this that it would be easier if things were booked where they intend, like where they were spent, because even like helping with building out some of the budget templates and so forth, I've discovered that pretty much every department, just books things or puts things under sometimes general ledger accounts that don't make any sense to me. Like, I would rather see them go negative on one line item and positive on the other, and then say, yeah, that was, we didn't use much of this and we overused that or something, right? Then, quote unquote, use up the budget where it's available. And then in the end, we don't know the true use, we don't know the true amounts, we don't know the true accounts. So there's been a lot of cleanup already, but can we find out from auditors like what their threshold is? Because that's going to explain, at least to me, quite a bit in terms of why this is not, why this perhaps being overlooked.
So the threshold that you're referring to is for each budget that we look at? We have a-
No. Auditors look at our financial statements, like just as a town, right? We are audited every year. And they have a threshold. So like, for example, the company that I work for, the threshold may be, 10 to 20,000, I don't know, right? Like I'm just giving an example, right? For the size of the company. And then anything between that, for example, would be considered immaterial. So they would still test, audit like certain expenses under that amount, but they're not going to look at those as detailed, right? Or care as much, because otherwise they'd be auditing for years and years on them, right? Because there's so many transactions, you can bury yourself in it. So they have certain tests that they run to make sure that the accounting is done properly. And those tests have thresholds. So just in general, like not, I'm sure there's some specifics here and there and whatever, but like just in general, what is the threshold they look at? What is it the magic number that they consider immaterial for our town?
Is that Plotnick and Sanders? Is that who usually does that?
Yes, Plaza and Sanders.
What is that again?
The firm we use is Plaza and Sanderson,
Yeah.
or something to that effect.
So how do we communicate with them?
That would be a Karen call.
Okay. Alina, would you want to contact Karen about that? And I refer that to you because you could explain threshold more clearly than I could.
Yeah, of course. And if you're okay with it, I will ask the question.
Okay. Any other questions or comments concerning general government?
I motion $57,552. I hope
Second.
that's the right column.
Can I ask a question
Sure.
now that we're in the discussion phase? How would people, can we add a line to a budget or no?
I don't think so.
We have no line authority.
You mean adding it into the code enforcement? I don't think we have the power to do that. We can make the recommendation, but I don't know who actually
No, we have no
Yeah, I don't know
line. We
how
have no
line
line.
items
are
We have no line
who
authority.
creates the line.
She just
Yeah.
makes a line.
What is it you'd like to?
I would like to, I would actually prefer to approve a number that's $500 or $501 less than the requested.
Do you want to take that motion? You want to do that?
Well, I don't know.
I'll-
If
I'll
I'm the
rescind
only one who
my-
wants to do it,
I'm with you. I like that idea.
And
I
where,
like it to be
Where's
clean.
it going?
where are you thinking of taking the 500 from?
I would suggest that they reopen the code enforcement budget and add $500 to a line that is for that vehicle.
So I will second that.
I know I can't actually tell.
You can't tell them where to put
Actually,
it.
what do we need to make a motion on,
I don't
just to
know.
reduce the
I don't know if
budget?
it's possible at this point in the budget season. If that's something you wanna clean up for next year and with the other items that everybody wants to clean up?
Maybe,
Maybe we could do that at the end of this,
like, make a list of all the things
Yeah.
going
Yes.
forward.
Yes.
I think it would be helpful because Karen knows all of those items and she knows exactly how things are shifting around. And I think what we could do is we could ask to, she obviously has time and availability, but sometime in the summer where there's a bit more room, those kind of projects, we could go over the whole file. We have most of it, I think, Michelle, you have most of it year by year, but it, like, in Excel, if we were gonna expend it, right?
Yes.
So that could be part of that. We could say, listen, we noticed that things, you know, and just go line by line and have them, it's because she would need to do that in her accounting system. That's the difficulty. So the way that it's being done right now would need to be almost rewired, if you will. So she need to, it's quite a bit of a process for, you know, to clean up, because it moves from one department to another. So it's not as easy as like moving it within the same department. Like, for example, we've heard from fire and police that there's been quite a bit of cleanup between accounts. That's them cleaning it up between their accounts, which you can do it just like, you know, within the same department. But when it goes from one department to another, I would think that it's a bit more complex.
Yeah, I guess if it's something we can't do this year, before this budget, that's fine. I think before next year, we should make sure as much as we can.
Yeah, don't put that on the list, I think
That-
you're right about that.
that-
Most everything in this budget is split between people that operate out of the town office, like postage is more town clerk, but it could be whoever
Mail
meters mail. Office supplies would most likely be everybody.
Travel
in this
mileage is
building.
probably split.
Travel.
I guess it's just vehicle repairs then, that,
Well, no, because travel and mileage, if you wanna do what you wanna do, would have to show up in how many ever budgets use it. Same thing as
so do you see this as being
a catch-all.
a catch-all, but vehicle repairs, it shouldn't be here then,
There is
Right.
only the one
There is
vehicle
only the
for,
one.
yeah.
as of now. I guess if we ever have more than one
Correct.
town vehicle, then it would maybe kick back here, but then again,
I think when this was created, the old cruiser went and was being used by the treasurer and the town clerk. So that's probably how it ended up in this budget.
To go to the bank and whatever.
Yes.
Okay.
And then code enforcement got busier. And the car being only driven once a week or once every other week just didn't make sense. So that's probably how it started in this budget and then just never got moved,
Yep,
if that makes sense.
that does make sense.
So if he needs a new windshield wiper or something, boom,
Right.
comes here. Okay.
Shall we go back?
Okay, there was a motion.
Emotion,
and
we can do
Second
that.
for 57,552 on the floor.
All right, who made, Letty, no, that was.
Lois
yeah,
and me.
Lois. I'll change that. 4,
5, 7, 5,
5, 7, 5, 5, 2.
Yeah. Let's vote on that, Letty.
5. Aye.
Anthony?
Aye.
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 Alina?
I will say aye, but I would like to understand what the miscellaneous contracts
Sure,
is.
we can do that.
Yeah, I'm an aye. Do you want to get back to her on that, or do you
I will
want me to go to Karen?
email you
Oh, okay,
or have Karen email you, one of the two.
okay, okay. Okay. Next is health officer. Is there a motion?
Oh, motion got for, I think it's $1, right?
Can I ask a question?
Yep. We'll have some
Do
discussion.
we have any idea how, like, this has to do with our current health officer? Is our current health officer planning on staying indefinitely for,
He has offered his services for the next year if he does not run for election. Even if he does not run for election, he's offered to.
that would, okay, I had a moment of like, what? Cause, okay,
A motion for $1.
Second.
Let's have a vote. Letty?
aye.
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 Alina?
Let's do this.
Aye.
Absolutely.
That's a bargain.
Hey, Andy, what would this budget typically be if we didn't have a volunteer?
I have no idea what health officer would cost.
Hold that thought.
I've heard of, at one point it was $100, I remember it being at one point.
Is it,
If you had to hire a medical
it
person,
annual
it was
versus,
serious
like-
money.
how much they do? Like, if they're busier, do they get paid more, or?
So think some towns do like a regional contract with one person, you know, because it's hit or miss, like you could have 5 things going on
Or
a month, or you could have nothing for 6 months.
It has been $1 since 2015.
I was gonna say, it's been long.
Is there a
9 years.
liability for Bob or whoever is doing this?
Bob's been, it's been 9 years.
I mean, I don't think he's medically trained,
Well, the health is more not medical, it's more,
Insurance.
no, it's more
say-
health and safety. So, he would go with the building inspector if a building needed to be condemned, or, if there's a restaurant that has sewage leaking, they would have to determine whether it was a health hazard.
what training, like, is there training or qualifications?
He's done everything through the state, so the state
Okay.
kind of walks you through.
Okay, so
And
there
then-
is.
So like, he sees the problem, as health officer, he has more power to enter a residence than anybody else. And then he can report to whether it's
Whoever he needs to
DES
report to.
or
Yeah.
the state health department or whatever. And then he gets the flow of information from the health department, from the state, and then would disperse it the other way. He's kind of more of a middleman than an actual,
Person who does.
so he has a medical person backup or a safety person backup
state.
to refer to it at the
Yes.
state, okay?
street
Okay,
lighting?
Street lighting, I love that one.
street lighting,
Do we have any street light?
any
Do
questions,
not.
I didn't
comments?
think so.
So, back in the day, the state shut all their streetlights off and said if we want a streetlight, we would have to pay for it. So they shut all the ones off on North Road, 107, and I believe there was some at South Road.
Oh.
Middle Road's lighted, so it's different, but, so the board motioned to keep the streetlight on by Officer Arkell's memorial.
Mhm.
But we haven't got a bill ever. So that's why it's
We didn't hear that.
So I motion for $1.
second.
Let's have a vote. Letty,
Aye.
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 Alina?
Is that over at the bridge?
I'm an aye.
It's on 107 at South Road.
But they didn't shut down the traffic lights, right?
Correct.
They-
This was just the street lighting.
The state does operate the traffic lights, not the town.
Yes.
Next up is insurance,
Insurance, property liability?
Insurance,
other
property liability, yes. For $139,000.
Bob tells me that a $6,000 increase on our property liability is a 10% increase is a good number for Brentwood standings, so the total budget's up 4.5%.
So workers' comp went down because we had a good worker
Yeah,
injury record.
Believe it's 7-year history, so as you progress, your back-end claims start coming off your.
Okay. Any
Do we
questions?
have anybody on workers' comp?
Currently, no. Years ago, yes. Technically, Officer Arkell is gonna be a workman's comp claim.
Oh.
And then we had some highway department employees injured.
Yes, I know who.
Different employees have different stuff throughout the year.
Yeah.
So I'll move the 139131.
Second.
Vote. Letty?
Aye.
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 Alina?
Aye.
And I'm an aye. Motion passes.
Are we doing benefits?
Last is benefits.
Dramatic. The warrant
Yeah, they're probably expensive to insure.
No, this is health insurance.
Oh,
So 35,000 of that was the, came out last year.
certainly is.
Selection of different ways.
Do you have a, looks like,
We've always had a buyout,
it looks like more people are gonna take it next year?
yes. It looks like
Where's the,
Here's the shirt.
you know what my short-term disability benefit is. Historically,
Two-thirds.
my short-term benefit was, you needed to be out, I believe, 2 weeks before the benefit kicked in, and that was 60%.
Most of
And good for, I believe, 6 months.
And then long-term,
And if you had, you need,
there's no long here.
doesn't pay for it, offers it to the end. It's not a benefit.
Cheaper, sure.
Say again?
So it's pretty cheap for short-term disability. Is it cost share?
It's a pool, just like our health insurance.
is it through Health Trust?
I don't know if it's through Health Trust, but I believe it's pooled.
So would
But
all,
our risk is probably low to begin with.
Why is retirement, I see there's a retirement line, why is it not in here?
Is this its own item? Is it its own line item?
It's,
because
it's in all the
because
budgets.
it's
Because it
all
went
the
to
other
all-
budgets. It's a function of salary.
I- Yes.
At one point it was in here.
Yeah, it was.
These things all
We fought to
look
get it
like things
together.
we have no control over,
Correct.
so that's why I was wondering if retirement should be in that category.
No, we fought to get it taken out,
Why?
because then you have the whole picture of what the people actually make.
Actually, what is,
But,
That's
no,
also-
cause these things don't, cause
then
if
why
you're
is,
talking about benefits, these things are also benefits that are not included in each category.
why would FICA and Medicare be in here?
Yeah, that's strange.
But that's a weird number for FICA.
Never mind, I don't know, now I really don't know.
Well,
Put that on
it
your
doesn't,
list.
it
for-
doesn't make sense that there
Put
would
that on my
even be
list for
that in-
cleanup, maybe?
In that,
Yes.
in that budget.
What's that?
Well, I guess that's what I'm saying, this benefits category, as opposed to salary, is something that we don't have control over, right?
No, you're right about that, but with the New Hampshire retirement in individual budgets, because they go along with the salaries, FICA and Medicare are also in the individual budgets to go along with salaries, so I don't know where that number would even come from.
Yeah, you have to, yeah, that's something screwy.
I make a motion, we table this one.
One of these things is not like the other.
I'll second that.
Well, it's being spent, so
Yeah, it's a have to spend, right?
Well, and it might belong here. I didn't think about the fact that every other budget has
Maybe.
them in,
The insurance is considered income because it's over the minimum threshold, and so it's charged to FICA.
oh, the insurance contribution, you mean?
You know, like if your insurance benefit is over a certain level, then it's considered income.
short-term disability may carry a benefit-related fee.
I see.
Yeah, something
Because
becomes
it's a
income and then it's
benefit.
FICA associated with it.
I see.
Hey, you print that, don't you?
Yeah. So on the health insurance, so 30-something is because of the two new firefighters, is that what?
38,000 is what the increase was on the rate increase, so that's what's being covered by ARPA. I read it wrong. I don't know, it would be 4 firefighters.
Isn't there also, I know, GMR was also crazy high for the guaranteed maximum rate for insurance. I don't know if that also hit your insurance.
So 35,000 is the increase over last year that's being covered by ARPA. And then 2 full-timers moved from the warrant article to that. So you'd have to break down what their costs were.
So the 35,000 wasn't for the 2 firefighters?
No, 35,000 was what the increase was by the rate increase.
So that means the two new firefighters is the net of that. So it's $66,000, $33,000.
And it looks like
person?
selection changes.
And selection
And
changes.
selection changes.
That's why
Because
this
that
is,
is a
that's why you
33.
said this is all in one, right? So that people
Yes.
don't know what people are selecting.
Do you still wanna table this, or have you heard enough?
I guess it's, I mean, you're right, it's getting spent.
I can get you the answer, but it's the same as the last budget.
Yeah. No, I withdraw my motion.
Do we want a motion to,
Yeah, I'll entertain that.
$436,654?
Second.
Let's have a vote. Letty,
Aye.
Anthony,
Aye.
Aye.
Andy,
Aye?
Alina? John? And I'm an aye.
I feel like we're in slow motion. I don't know why.
How many employees would be covered by
Health insurance?
health insurance, let's say, yeah.
Or by the first 2 lines, how about?
It's just the town office, right?
No,
Oh, no?
it would be town office, highway, fire, police.
In that number? Okay,
Yes,
okay.
that is everybody eligible for
How
health
many
insurance.
total employees are there that are eligible? Is that what
So
you
she said 8 at the PD. There is 6 at the fire department, I believe now. 3 at the highway department. I think 4 in the town office.
Does rec,
Rec,
was that +1?
5.
It's
And
22 by my
then-
count.
I don't know if insurance is in the library budget or not. I'll have to look.
So between health insurance and the buyout,
I
That
don't think it
covers
is,
everybody.
the library is a totally separate thing because of it.
Well, they're supposed to be, but I do think they go under our plan. Under the town plan.
it's probably better to have. them
Yes,
in the
library is in there too, so
pool. Two?
I think just 2 at the library.
Director of the system.
So 24.
Yeah. 24
Oh.
total of town employees.
Add one to PD because we didn't count the secretary. Kendra.
So 25?
25.
25?
Okay, that's it for budgets. And we will have two budgets to do next week, in addition to school.
Okay. General government buildings once.
Well, Karen told me that
Mosquitoes.
mosquitoes
Oh,
was
mosquito.
yet to be done.
So it's government buildings, Swayze, and mosquito.
Right.
That's what we have left.
Are we gonna get an estimate of increased revenue for the next meeting?
This,
No, it's kind of related to that, it's related to that. So I sent Jack a note, and one of the other things related to your note was the request for increased assessed value.
Yes, well, I was gonna get to that, but, so,
Okay.
next subject is what we circulated some information on, is planning for future loss of revenue and ARPA. And, if it wasn't clear in what I wrote, I really feel we're okay for 2023, probably okay for 2024.
What's your estimate on 23 for increase, do you know?
Once we've done the two budgets next week, I can give you a hard number on it.
So I sent off that, I was just wondering if mine is directionally correct with yours.
I'd have to check that, I don't have, I
'Cause
don't
I
have,
was,
I don't have it with me, but
I was looking at an average of 815,
I will,
and that's including the co-op number, which amazingly came in at 4%, or is going to
Well,
come
when
in.
you're talking about the many millions of dollars that co-op budget is, percentage, it may be a small percentage number,
Yeah,
doesn't mean it's
no.
a small.
Yeah, but
amount.
historically 4% has been pretty great for, we never hit 4%. So it was looking like with the ARPA money included, it was over $800 for a standard 419 or whatever it is house.
I didn't understand fire warrant impact. On that one, on your table.
Oh, did you distribute what I sent you?
yes,
Oh.
yes.
It's because it's impacts, it gets back to, we've already been taxed for it, but they didn't spend all of it, and it was kind of that, those values are kind of squishy, because I'm not entirely sure I understand the fire, how that budget was put together. Because it's 25%, the budget itself is 25% of part of its warrant article, and we didn't spend all of it, and we applied some ARPA to it, but, so I just went and did an estimate based upon what the chief put in there for the net budget impact.
Net of ARPA,
Yeah. I don't know. If that's not correct, actually, then it's higher. I'm just trying to do year to year, not absolute. So, anyway.
So I don't have included the Swayze or the co-op figures, but for the budgets that we have approved just for town, not including whatever last two that we need to do, it's a $574,361 increase over last year. And I don't have the tax base or anything, so I can't give you the calculation of what
have,
Just-
oh my,
Do we have that?
Did you
that's the
include the police?
spreadsheet that checks.
What?
The police is included in yours?
Yes, it is now.
I can tell you the number. Right, cause that's the spreadsheet that Jack sent out,
Yeah,
has the
Tax base?
tax.
500,000 would be $273 on
Do you want the actual number?
Yeah. So yours aligns with mine, actually,
730.
because that fire is overrepresented, and I subtracted it out, and when you add in Swayze, you end up at $1 million, a
No, I have
little under $1 million.
to, I don't think,
The $1 million one, Fred.
I think I need to
Well,
make
and
sure
that-
that all my
And
numbers.
that will, you said that does or does not include Swayze?
Does not include, no, that's.
Right, cause
just
there's a
now.
different number that you have to divide by for Swayze. Because
Yeah, no, this is just,
for some reason,
Swayze is,
Swayze is without utilities, or any school tax, I guess, I don't know.
yeah, it is, it's not a great difference, but it is
They
different.
do it like that way for a reason, I'm sure.
so it is, it's looking to be, 78.786 on $1,000, so $304 on a $4,000.
That's including Swayze.
No,
That's not including
It's not
Swayze, and that's not
including Swayze.
including,
just town. That's obviously not including Warren Arts, anything, that's just town body, but we have approved.
Right.
That does not, the ones that we haven't approved.
Swayze's
Small,
close
which
to
are-
100.
I think just government buildings and mosquitoes
Yeah,
and Swayze, but again.
Wait a minute,
this chart
Swayze-
isn't
How much did you say the entire budget went up by?
574.
Swayze is going up by less than that though.
5936 to 6308 is just under 400,000.
Literally, it's my budget, but blame me. I didn't think it was going up by that, I thought it was closer to 400,000.
I
okay.
thought
That's
that's
what I
what you
said.
said was 300.
It's like
why
What did you say?
just under 400,000.
Oh, so if it's just under 400,000, how is it having more of a tax impact than?
It's
Almost.
co-op as well.
Oh, that's Swayze
okay,
and co-op.
okay.
Swayze, so
That
it's looking like the average tax bill is 815, and some of this is, there's a little bit of slop in it, but
Mhm.
it's 815 without
That
going
was
articles.
This was like my budget. Aqua.
So, and a lot of that increase this year, in the coming year, is gonna be offset by ARPA.
No, that's with the ARPA offset. If ARPA hadn't been in there, it'd be higher. I also include adequacy. Because that's gonna come out in what we end up paying co-op, right?
I mean, the 375,
Yeah,
What do you mean?
because we don't have as
Adequacy is
large
a revenue.
But we don't,
but it's gonna be 375 less, which
right,
compared to a previous year is essentially a cost.
right.
But technically, if
That's
it's
not,
an increase of 3% per student, there should be less students attending.
did you just use the number from the table?
That's
Because
right.
they're not decreasing the amount that you're
I
getting
just
per
used
student.
370 because
It's
that's
a
what we were
3%
talking about,
increase.
but that was the,
So if there's less funding, there
it's your
should be
table.
less students.
the
So
vote
the
as a-
bill from the
right.
co-op should be less, because you pay per student.
I think they changed the
But
equation,
then
didn't
Yeah.
they? The adequacy
Like the
equation.
co-op, the total budget is moving up.
I don't
Or-
think that's
or
why the
maybe
adequacy
we'll
went
go.
down though. I thought
I
there was
feel
a
like,
change.
I feel like we have too many moving parts.
It's a lot of words.
There are a lot of
Swirling
moving
And
parts
too
right
many,
now.
well, so the co-op budget isn't finalized yet,
Right. That's gonna
because we
be,
haven't had the deliberative session yet.
it's gonna be January 10th. They're gonna
So
set the
it is worth
proposed.
mentioning to everyone who may be watching this, that because the co-op budget is under SB2, there are two parts to that. There's the talking about the number part and the voting on the number part. We do it all in one time where we talk about it and then vote. The deliberative session is the talking part, that's where you can change the number. After that, it goes on the warrant, or it goes on the ballot, and you can either vote yes for that budget or no, which will give you a default budget, neither of which you have any control over after January 10th.
Have you heard if,
January 10th is deliberative.
think that's what Jack
Yeah,
said.
yeah, it is.
have you heard how
Typically
much
doesn't
different
change
the
that much.
default budget is?
No,
No,
January
and
10th
that is
not
a
deliberative.
question that Jack
It's-
had that I'm still
It's when
waiting.
the board will decide
Oh.
what the proposed budget will be, that will be presented to at deliberative.
Yes, and then that would be also when we would know what the default is, because it's possible for the default budget to be less or more.
Yes.
They typically don't go default though, I think it typically goes,
It is
Whatever's
whatever the
proposed.
voters decide.
well, no, I'm just saying historically,
It just
It's-
gets passed, yeah.
it gets passed, yeah.
Sure. But there's
So
always a
I
first
think
time.
we're making an assumption, that's the assumption. Of course, again, 4%, it's not that much.
Well, I think the default number has a lot to do with whether the budget gets passed.
It usually passes, so
Right.
I can't
Well,
speak for all of the people.
Passes everywhere else except for.
Doesn't matter.
Yeah, so I think that's about the net that we're looking at.
So what I'm trying to propose is that we be dealing with the development of these budgets ahead of time, not in the last minute rush of budget season. And we have some questions about library, about some other things. I have some questions for even highway, and I would suggest that we put those questions together and approach them when we reform in March. And at that time, go to the departments and say, we're concerned about this salary, we're concerned about, and with budget, we're gonna know how you arrived at that salary recommendation, and we wanna see supporting comparables.
Maybe you have a budget workshop for each department, like pick a night in the summer and meet with a department for 2 hours and break down their budget of, try to help them help us put it together.
That,
So we don't actually
That's-
have to wait until March. We can fix things now if we think there's something that's not been done properly.
my feeling.
Because you're not gonna
just-
reduce salary anywhere.
No, just my personal feeling is that we've worked,
I'm gonna get arrested.
Don't you know anybody?
you've got keys, come on, you can deal with it. That we've worked for 2 years here to bring salaries, compensation for the town employees to something that is comparable to what else is out there. And that has, the goal of that, of course, is to retain the experience, the knowledge, and prevent the departure of the experience. And so I would be inclined to keep what we've done so far, but be aggressive in what we want to have done in the coming year, the way that,
I just don't think that we've done our job this year. I'll be perfectly frank. I mean, that was in my email, I think. We've said yes to everything. Select board has said yes to everything. Not only that, they've been inflationary in how they've approached things. They've had things, they've brought this whole COLA plus 2.5. Nobody does that. Like, we have the highest raises of anybody in the seacoast. Like, if our goal is to be competitive, that's one thing, but it's not just, it's crazy. And like I said with the library, I mean, I know people who work at the library, they're really good friends. They brought a study in, and the assistant director is now making what their study said the director should make as a result of this. It's bonkers. It's like nobody's looking at numbers.
So, you're talking about the percentages, how do our salaries compare? Not the
We
raises,
leveled them
like,
last year.
but how do they compare now?
We leveled them last year.
But how do they compare now?
Competitive.
Competitive this year.
We leveled them to be competitive last year.
So like, I wasn't here last year, so I only tangentially know.
And
the
I
process that
voted
you
for
went
all of
through.
those, right? I mean, because I thought that was the right thing to do. I thought we should be competitive,
We
but
did 20,
we've
20,
gone
21%
completely off
across
the
the
rails this
whole,
year.
an awful lot of positions, huge increases.
Well, the trustees of the library certainly could be one of our meetings.
Yeah, but you're not gonna reduce that salary next year. You're not gonna reduce those salaries. It's only gonna go up from there. It's gonna get 5% COLA plus 2%, because that's what the select board wants.
Not necessarily, not necessarily is it gonna be.
I think another thing that needs to be considered, and I asked Karen for this and she obviously didn't provide it, was the total compensation. So we're talking about wages and what
Some
these wage
departments have
increases
that.
are. But that's not their whole compensation. I mean, in my purview, their retirement and their health insurance and all of that should be included in what we look at as their compensation. It's not just wage.
Well, absolutely agreed, except in the case of the library and their director, assistant director, it doesn't help. They don't take it. They get a stipend, they don't take insurance.
I'm
So
not-
it wouldn't affect that one. That's the one,
But I'm not just talking about the library.
no, and I agree with you 100%.
I mean, when you say, you know, I don't know if other towns are paying full health insurance like we do. I don't know if that's happening. I don't know what got compared town to town.
We don't pay full health
We only pay
insurance.
full health insurance for a single
For
person.
singles, yeah.
Or 80%. And what I'm saying is I don't know what the
The town only
comparison
pays
is.
75%.
I don't know what the comparison is. When you say the wage versus
Mm,
this town is
I
this
see.
amount and we're really low, well, what is that town paying for health insurance?
No, I agree
Is
with
that
what,
also really low?
I agree with what you're saying, but your 20-year-old employees could care less what their health insurance costs you.
Because they're invincible.
Well, it's free
They
for them
want-
anyway, because they're
They
singles. so-
want their money or they're gonna go find somebody else. At 20, they don't care. 35 and they start having children, then they care, but at 20, they could care less what their retirement or, it's all about the money and what I can do with it today.
Okay, well, maybe
Or
we don't
let's
want
hire some
20-years
30-year-olds
working
who-
here.
Yeah, exactly.
I don't-
Let's hire some
I mean,
30-year-olds
I'm
to
just
care,
saying,
right?
I think, you know, I've been saying this, I think this is my third term on this committee, and that's a thing that I've always asked for, and it's a thing that
So
we
we
should
did-
just be given and
We
don't
did get it for the highway department. I don't know if you saw that. We got it for one department.
So, are
It was different. It was the only one that was like that. I don't know why.
do you ever get an answer, like, I mean, is it because
It was an
it's showing?
email that I copied to you and
No.
Karen today.
No, I saw the question, but I saw we have no answer.
Right.
So, but in previous years, is it because it's revealing some personal information that we can't itemize?
We have gotten it on occasion in years past. I don't know if anything has changed, why she now feels that we can't have that, or if there's,
I mean, it's all listed out in the budget. You know what each employee gets for health insurance. You know what each employee gets for retirement. It's what the town's cost is.
But is it individual?
And then it's different for every person.
yes, I know that, but you're still not looking at,
Guys, the reason we can't do health insurance is because in the cases when there's one person department, you know exactly, like you can actually back into it, figure out if they have any health issues, or because the insurance is age, like also age based, so there's a lot of that information that you can figure out from the insurance rate.
The only thing you could
By
do,
comparing
Yes, I
that
do remember
20-year-old to
providing
somebody
It
else.
has everything. so
Yeah.
I'm
the
sure
only
it's-
thing you could do is take the total number of people by total cost of benefits and divide it. But that wouldn't give you what you're looking for, because police retirement is different than town office retirement.
No, the retirement we have in terms of percentages, like if you look at the police budget, you'll see that there's administrative rate, worksheet, I'll find it, the page for you. There's a worksheet, it lists administrative rate, and then it lists, police officer rate. That administrative rate is the same for administrative positions in town.
Correct. But what I was saying, Elena, the only way to fairly do it would be take a total cost of benefits and divide it by all town employees, but it
Yes,
doesn't give you an
yes,
accurate
that
picture.
makes sense, yes. Or look at, which we did last year, was it 2020 or 2021? Anyways, remember when we looked at the rates for, like, for single, for family, for,
Right.
we looked at that, but, you know, I mean, all sorts of things get accounted into specifics once, you know, you can figure out who has family, who doesn't, you can figure out, you know, all sorts of things.
Still town report.
Yeah, but I think what Michelle was trying to get at is not so much the specificity of that, but when we start talking about salaries, we talk about it like it's in isolation, we don't talk about it like it's part of a larger package. Just like Wayne's guys, I actually looked it up in that meeting, they basically make what certified diesel mechanics make, right? But a certified diesel mechanic isn't getting 100% of their healthcare paid for, and they're not getting retirement paid for, unless they're working at like a large company. Most of them just don't have that, and so if we're looking at it from a retention perspective, I mean, there's a lot of value there that's not, that a straight
But unless
wage
they're
doesn't
single-
represent.
Takers of health insurance, they're not getting 100% of their healthcare paid for.
Well, I can tell you that I don't get anywhere near 75% of my healthcare paid for, and I work at a really good company with a really good job, right? I mean, that's a really good benefit.
But that's not 100%.
No,
75
I
is
understand that, but
100.
what I'm saying is that
But
there's
even
value there. Like,
yeah.
he's not gonna go anywhere else and get
Anthony, are we
75%.
comparing salaries? Are we comparing salaries? Are you prepared to, like, tell us yours? Are we comparing salaries of these people to yours?
No, we're not.
Well, then.
Alina, you work in the private sector, you understand how this works. Nobody ever in the private sector talks only about straight salary. It's complete, it's total compensation. When you're budgeting, it's total compensation.
You can't compare
You know that.
private
It's in the-
sector to
absolutely.
You can't compare private sector to government. You
How not? Because we are, when we say that people will leave public to go to private, we're literally comparing.
Right, you're retaining them, and one of the big benefits is
Guys,
the benefits,
no,
we
the
have
numbers to
outstanding
begin with,
benefits.
If they go to private, their numbers to begin with are gonna be a lot higher. Like, still, let's talk numbers.
No, I just talked numbers.
Let's talk numbers, not percentages, numbers.
I did, I just talked numbers. We talked about Wayne's two people, great guys, right? But they're making what the average certified diesel mechanic in New Hampshire makes.
That's a good wage.
I mean, we're talking comps, and they're not doing full-time diesel mechanic work. I just said that, I did that because they're giving us value with their diesel mechanic expertise at the moment. Right? I mean,
You guys, I'm not even gonna argue.
Well, we,
Well, here-
I mean, that's how we end up approving everything.
Yeah, that's
When
exactly-
when we don't have discussions, it's how we end up, I mean, we've literally said no to nothing
Yep.
this year.
Some of us have
We have $1
said
million.
no. Some of us have tried to say no.
Yeah,
So,
we tried.
what do you see your role on the municipal budget committee as being? Like, what is
To
your,
keep
what-
our government functioning at an efficient tax rate, I mean, as efficiently as it can for our taxpayers.
so our tax rate went down this year.
Does that mean that we can spend whatever we want as a result of that?
No, but if you,
I mean, each and every one of these decisions needs to be made responsibly. I mean, is it responsible for them, you know, last week when they came in, is it responsible to have a study that tried closely imitate what we did last year, and then just pick a random number, you know, $10,000 more than the study said it should be?
So just a perspective. I pay $77.98 a week for my health care. A family that works for me pays $105.19. And Karen says our rates are much lower than Brentwood's rates. It was like 20 or some odd dollars a week. So a Brentwood employee is paying about $100 a week out of their pocket for their health care. For a two-person, and maybe up to 130. I'm just guesstimating off of my numbers of what I am paying.
Well,
that's a lot.
I don't even know.
Really? You don't
No,
want to
no,
know
but
what I
that's
pay?
not, wait, but the end of that, we pay, which is very unusual. we've always done it. They pay all this, the person, the single person, all of their healthcare for a single person. And that's the employee. That's a darn good deal. Go into a private company that you know that pays 100% of anything. We were United Airlines Management, and they didn't pay.
Actually, on the single, Louis, on the single, it's quite common that companies pay that, on the single employee. It's usually families and stuff. Anthony, don't shake your head, that I know.
I've never seen somebody in a private sector pay 100%. Maybe
I haven't
I've
either.
never seen it.
Yeah.
I never have either.
Also not in finance and
And I got a lot more
My
years of
company
working than you
paid
do.
100%, and we paid also family, because we felt healthcare was that important to our employees, and it was important for retention. Okay, I've been retired for 10 years, and maybe they've changed, but I don't think so.
In a small company,
Small company, 20 people.
any of your big companies, not so. Not so.
Well, what are we looking at?
25.
25 people here.
That's fair.
But that- but-
Employee turnover in a small company is even more important than it is in a big company.
Right. Yeah, but we do give a very good, our health benefits good, our retirement is good. We have good things, and that is part of the retention.
Have you
And
looked
when
at the
you don't-
retirement plan lately?
What?
Because it's not that good.
Well, it has to come down a heck of a long way from it.
It's changed a lot since, in the past 10 years.
You mean since the state stopped helping to fund it?
Yeah, now we don't get 3 weeks of paid sick time.
Just let me go back to your question about the assessor. I contacted the assessor today, and I've asked him 20 questions about about our valuation base. He said Monday is a very busy day for him, so obviously I'm not gonna get an answer today, but I would hope by the end of the week I'll have something, because that's gonna be an important factor.
Yeah.
Once we get beyond the next 2 years, while we've got, ARPA and a couple of bonds that are expiring, the expansion of the valuation is gonna be important. I mean, I don't know if there's anything that we want to do here. If somebody wants to make a motion, I'll entertain a motion, but otherwise, I would really like to see us this year put together an approach, whether it's meeting with departments and being thorough about their budget, rather than just having things roll in here from the select board. And I respect the select board, but
Do we have
select board's got a lot of other things that's on their mind, and
A lot of this
I think
stuff-
us being
And can we
proactive.
do that? My understanding, the Municipal Budget Act is that we cannot act till after they have. That's my understanding.
That's right, but we can,
I'm with you, Will.
we can lobby in reverse, so to speak.
Well, you and I did
The
that with the library, it
departments.
didn't go well, did it? They did absolutely nothing that we lobbied, suggested or whatever.
Well,
I think Elena's had very good reception from department heads when she's reached out to help them with their budget, so even though it's not.
As a
Yeah, but
result?
she never tells them no.
I don't think they trim as a result. I don't think she's
She's just,
trying to reduce budget, she's just trying to,
trying to figure
put it
out
in
how
the
to make,
table.
put them together.
Yes, yeah.
she's
she
helping
doesn't-
them with their spreadsheets.
But if you can see, like, the spreadsheet she's doing, you can actually see how, and why the need for the budget is.
That's what the chief said, it was easier for him to see the places he could cut
Right.
because it was built
Yeah.
out.
Better laid out, whatever,
You know, better spreadsheets might be the key to the answer to some of these departments, actually.
I think the key is gonna be to get our select board to not be quite so inflationary in their guidance to the departments.
Well, we can respond to that. I mean,
I have a
you know,
question.
we can return some budgets if we want to do that.
Does anyone keep track of, or is it kept track of anywhere of when you spend money that's not the way it was intended to be spent in the budget?
What do you mean?
So like, you pulled money out of various lines to be able to build the highway shed shell this year, right?
Yeah. Well,
So,
one line.
We can do
sure,
that.
so like, so the school equivalent is spending out of the unassigned fund balance. Is there a way for us to know how much of that happens, other than just thinking about specific projects or times that it happens? Cause that would be an example of,
So anytime the boards, that I can recall, the board spends outside of a budget, it's brought up in a meeting.
okay, so go back and looking at minutes, we could say like, this wasn't budgeted for, but we have money over in this line, so we're gonna use it for this thing instead, that would be all in minutes.
And normally that occurs in November, December, when department heads are trying to buy equipment that wasn't budgeted for out of money left over.
I would be amenable for us to meet in January to cover what departments we think are out of line here, and that we would like to, that we want to approach in March, when either all of us or most of us are gonna be here. And that way, these departments, it's not like it's a last minute thing to us or to them. They know what we're gonna be looking for when they come, at budget time, and
So
we're.
you're not talking about reopening budgets,
I'm not talking about reopening budgets that we've already done, no.
You're talking about next year.
I'm talking about
next year.
getting next year in line with the way we think things should be, and we're willing to help departments get there,
So.
either with financial.
What does that look like to you? So if we adopt the exact same budget next year that we have this year, then we are getting behind on wages again.
That may happen, or it may not. We may not level fund everything.
Okay.
But
We may have
there are questions about the salary of two people at the library.
I
That,
don't think we're gonna realistically
You
claw
can't,
back anything.
you
no,
can't go backward.
no,
Well, you
No,
can,
no,
because
but
You
every
can,
budget's a
technically,
new budget.
realistically, we're not going to.
if it's.
I don't
if
think
it's-
legally you can go backward on an employee's pay.
No, you can't,
if
there a
it's- if
contract?
it's- But if it's truly
By-
not
By state
comparable.
law, I don't think you can.
no.
Interesting.
The municipal employees, I don't think you can. That's
don't
why I would
know.
like to entertain reopening the library budget. I would like to request
So
that.
that's a thing that keeps, that I can't wrap my
Now.
head around. The library is its own entity, correct? We have a board of trustees,
Yes.
but we foot the bill, and they are on our insurance, and they are considered our employees. How is that?
Well,
If
we,
they're separate, are they separate or not?
The RSA allows.
the RSA says they're separate. They're not our employees, they're, like, Karen doesn't manage them as employees.
We pay them, that makes them our
The
employees.
trustees manage them as employees.
Why is it like that? Like why, I'm
'Cause
assuming the RSA is like
there was
that
a
for a reason.
Yeah, probably there was a state law developed somewhere at some point in time to prevent people from shutting libraries down, I don't know.
Shouldn't,
But
is there a difference though?
Why can't we reopen the library? I would like to motion or whatever it takes. I know we can redo budgets.
We can
Why can't-
reopen any budget if we
Right.
have a motion in a second.
Well, I'd like to motion, I'm not sure I'll get a second. I'd like to motion to open the library budget because it is outrageous, it's got the town in an outrage.
I think if you're gonna open a library budget, it needs to be noticed so that the library trustees can defend their budget.
Of course, we we schedule it for whenever.
Please not next Monday.
I gather I'm the only one that's willing to.
Well, there were three
In a
people, I
second.
believe, that voted against that budget.
Right, I'm
But
looking,
if those three, if it's only gonna be those three people who disagree with that budget and the rest of the committee is going to vote for the budget, then what's, I mean, you'd have to make quite a case, you'd have to get into Chief Venture's, just negotiate, I don't know, the way he was talking, he had you turned around and, you need to talk like Chief did, I don't know. And, convince people of, that should be different, but,
He's a litigator.
I mean, we could, yes.
Hmm.
I mean, we can reopen it, but are we gonna rehash the same thing that we already rehashed?
Right, if
Is
we
there
talk
gonna be
about
any
it for another
change?
2 hours,
Is anybody gonna change their mind?
So I think that we should go back to that, look at what they actually gave us for data, sit down with them and have them, and actually look at real numbers. Based on the data they put together and they gave us. And if we end up, I mean, worst that can happen is we talk about it for a little longer and nothing changes.
Well, I'm not opposed to rediscussing that budget,
Well, I made the motion, did we have a second?
but we can't open it tonight, we would
No, I
have,
had to make a motion to, oh, we have to do it at the
we
meeting?
have to do it at a different meeting,
Oh, okay,
if
I'll do it next week.
that's no, I mean, we
What-
could,
what is
I
it?
don't, what
What?
is that, do we make a motion
You-
now to reopen it at a future meeting,
You
or
make
how do
a
we?
Sure.
or to add it to the agenda at the
Yeah.
future meeting?
Yeah, I think that's the way it should be.
Because if you know that you have a motion and a second to reopen it, then in theory, if it's on the agenda, you know it's gonna happen and they can be here, right?
So, yeah, you could take a motion and a second to add it to
The next meeting.
January, well, I wouldn't do it next meeting because you have
No, thank
library.
You
You
have-
have school and,
You have to
No, we don't
post
wanna
it,
do
yeah,
that.
you wanna post it.
Next
Okay.
week,
so
but we would have to probably add a meeting in
it'd be
January.
January.
Cause I'll tell you, I'm not coming after next week in December.
Right, so when would we make the motion?
January 9th?
I mean, I guess we could just have a discussion and say that we wanna add it to the agenda. I don't know that we necessarily need a motion to do that, but if we just,
You have the votes to do it, so
Do we?
to reopen it?
to reopen it, you do. All you need is, well, no, you would need a majority.
To reopen,
You would have a motion and a second to vote on whether or not to reopen it.
Yes.
Right.
and that's what
So
I
the
was,
question is whether or not there's enough, whether or not anybody else.
Well, we could try, motion by Lois, I'll second it. To, what did you just say? Not reopen it, but to put it on the agenda.
Put it on the agenda
For, yeah,
for.
January 9th. Unless you want to meet the day after New Year's.
Thank you.
Can't get it done sooner? How much, what's the notice period?
Well, it could be next week. It only has to be
72 hours?
72 hours. But
But we don't wanna do it
You-
next week with Swayze.
it could be too heavy.
What about the second?
January's
Or
nice,
we don't
gives
wanna
us
do
a chance to get
it.
it together. Maybe I'll make a business to make it together.
Is the ninth?
No,
Yeah,
that's
school.
fine. Oh, yes. Let me check.
January 9th works for
It-
me.
Works for me
I think
too.
my meeting might be the second.
Oh, I can't do it January 9th. I'll be in Puerto Rico.
You what?
I'm gonna be,
We could have a
We'll be
meeting
here.
I'm gonna be
there.
on a beach.
Yeah?
I'm cool with that.
When?
My meeting might be, whatever.
There's $2,000, no, that's next year.
Check out travel expenses.
Yeah, that's gonna blow our $500 budget.
Hmm.
So
Do you want to do it later that
can-
first week?
can we actually just figure out if we're,
Yeah.
have enough people that actually wanna reopen the
Sure.
budget? So we have a motion and a second.
That people are
Okay, let's
interested.
have a vote.
Can I, before we,
Yeah, we can have discussion.
so the problem is that I haven't heard anything that makes me wanna reopen it, but I understand that in order to talk about it, we have to have a motion and a second.
That's
So-
correct.
So if you vote in favor of this, you're not saying you're gonna change your mind, you're just saying that you're willing to have the discussion. That's all.
Okay. What's the,
Are you enough?
Say your motion again.
The motion is to reopen the discussion for the library budget. Is that right?
Mhm.
Okay.
you second that motion?
I did.
All right, so we're ready to going around, we're doing an aye or whatever?
glad he's thinking.
Oh, I.
Thank
oh,
you.
okay.
I have to think if I'm gonna hear some, like, I'm an I.
Aye.
Nay.
Nay. Alina?
Confused, the motion was to be open?
The motion is, do you wanna hear people talk about the library again?
I've had 3 versions of the research and I've heard it 4 times, no.
I'm an aye. 1, 2, 3, 4, 4 to 3. What
My
we
next
open.
school board meeting is the 9th.
Good deal.
So we
so
can't,
that
so
will
the
not
9th won't work, we need a different date.
Because we obviously don't wanna have a meeting on the 2nd either.
Then the 16th is Martin Luther King Day,
Do
which
you
I'm
wanna
fine
do
with.
something later the first week? Like, I don't wanna do another Friday meeting, but
No,
We can't do
That
Friday.
didn't really work.
we'll do now and again.
So Wednesday or Thursday?
The fourth and the
I'm
fifth.
okay with Martin Luther King Day, if that works.
The
I-
4th or 5th is
Yeah, it works for
also
me
fine
too.
with me.
I don't know if we can,
January?
I don't know if we can have a meeting.
January
Wednesday or
16th?
Thursday? What are we gonna conflict with, Andy? Anything?
Can we have meetings
On a
on a legal
Wednesday?
holiday?
Wednesday or
What?
Thursday?
yeah.
Oh, good.
Thursday's planning
Thursday
board.
maybe planning board, we can meet in the other room.
They can meet me.
What date is that you're talking about?
Actually, they'll probably have a smaller group than we will. So do we have a
I
date?
don't think so.
Wednesday the 4th, Thursday the 5th?
Fourth is, I'm good with either of
I
them.
prefer the 5th, I think.
Well, the 5th is,
Thursday. Is that,
the 5th would be a Wednesday.
No.
No, the fourth.
You're
Oh, I'm in
looking at the wrong year.
2022.
Gotta go another year, gotta go forward. Yeah, the fourth is a Wednesday. I'm good with it. Anybody else? Are you available?
Either's fine.
Oh, good.
Either of those is fine.
The 5th?
We do need you here.
The 4th or the 5th?
They need the vote.
I would say the 5th.
Pardon?
If everybody's fine, I'd rather the 5th.
okay, Thursday the 5th,
At 6
January.
PM. To reopen the library budget.
Can we ask them to add the other comp towns?
Hold on.
For some reason, I have a schedule of a hearing on January 5th. Is it supposed to be a budget
I was
hearing?
gonna
Or
say-
maybe that's just Siri app giving me suggestions.
Our
We might
hearing is
have-
February
Okay.
9th.
Yeah.
Must be Siri.
Being helpful, reading your emails.
Swayze school budget.
Mind your own business hearing.
Never.
So, Jack, can we ask them to update their analysis using the comp towns that we used for everybody else?
Yeah.
Now,
So,
see,
we're
they
gonna
did a
ask them
private
to
person
attend
about
this
it.
meeting.
It wasn't even the board.
This is
that did
not
it.
just a discussion among
She
Right.
was
us.
a member of the law.
I
friends of
mean,
the library. She wasn't-
They don't have
she
to,
did
but
this-
it would,
I
she
probably
did this
behoove
for
them
all of it.
to.
I asked all kinds of questions.
I mean, the numbers seem reasonable based on the data, it was just, it's not apples to apples comparison.
They were back to, they were 2020. The salaries that were 2021 were not there in 22. So they weren't, I asked, well, I saw it 3 times. And each time I asked, and each time I said that's the only numbers she could get from Karen. That was her answers. So their answers were. But
What were the towns and the other thing?
6 o'clock.
Did we
I
cover
can send those.
everything you wanted?
That'd be great.
No, not quite, just one more thing, which probably
Yeah,
should be.
and Right.
Okay, we're done with that subject.
Yep.
we had,
I will contact the library and inform them. Hopefully that day will work. Okay, the only other thing I have is the elderly exemption that we talked about the last time. I asked people to look at the sheet that I passed out
and
and
I did, what did I do with it?
comment on the proposed numbers. And my intention is to write to the select board and propose those numbers. And, but I'm open to suggestions if somebody else wants to join me.
I absolutely am agreeing with us. I have actually been working with some towns that are in this category. What you suggested on several places are fine, you're proposed, but in the limits is where the problem is.
Okay,
Single income limit, even at 50,000, that is, it's low. We have the highest income, and we have the lowest of everything. And you very, very well handled moving up in most of the categories, but you didn't move up enough in the, a single asset.
what are you suggesting?
Sorry, go ahead.
Because 250,000, your definition, which I'm not terribly sure of a single asset includes part of their house.
No,
I don't, no, it doesn't.
doesn't include their house at all.
That's not what he told us before.
House is
I wrote my note, I noted that what is the single asset
My
amount?
understanding is that the house is not included
In a single asset.
Your primary residence.
Yeah, your second house may count.
Okay, so those are the numbers that are low. A single asset, what would that be, a car, stock? What would constitute the 85,000?
Anything that is not your house.
But his proposal is for 225,000.
I know, but that's we're still under,
No, that would be over everybody except for Chester.
yeah, that's what I'm good about. I think we should be over everyone, because and you did it with the others, because allegedly we have the most money, with the highest in the town.
Right, but I thought, my understanding is that this was meant to help people living on, so they wouldn't be working anymore.
Or $1,000.
They do,
Those
and they qualify.
are people we want to help.
Well, it's helpful, it's that
It's some level, this thing, 30,000, we're at 30, 50 still is not much above it.
They haven't set the delivery.
It really isn't.
So I think that the co-op board still has to officially approve the proposed budget, I think. I think that happens like next week, maybe.
I wish I brought.
I know. I have it on a piece of paper somewhere.
Yeah, I do too. I got a letter from Helen,
Mm-hmm.
and January 10th is when the board is going to set what
Yes.
the proposed budget is.
They're having their hearing. That's when there's public input, maybe at their budget, and then
Yes.
they vote on it.
But then,
Not to be a party pooper, can we go back to what was on the table?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
okay,
Not that I mind, Lois
So-
just got stomped on, but
So,
it wasn't
sorry,
nice.
that was not,
It happens all the time, what are you gonna do?
Lois, I'm not hearing
So-
a number from you.
I would like to go, 55,000 and 70,000
for what and what?
for a single income
In
in marriage.
single annual income.
55,000. I'm not sure if some people could, that's not a lot of money, because,
So what do you think an appropriate annual income limit would be?
what did I do?
55,000.
Hold on. No,
55,000,
for a single person
right.
who's retired?
Yeah, because right now, their house probably is costing, out of that 55,000, they're probably spending at least 10,000 on a $400,000 house.
But they also have $200,000 in assets that you're earning from it.
But those
Hold
limits,
up, you're saying,
those are limits. They don't necessarily have that money. The income is what they have coming in. I actually talked to, and they might have a little something, I don't know what, but that's not
Well,
my place.
I'm not sure we want to design this for
No,
a
I was just,
particular person.
no, I wasn't doing that, but I was taking something just to feel what somebody was in that situation, which I'm not. I mean, we
Well,
so amply put it.
I mean, if we
So-
can't agree
But
on,
I'm okay, and I'm okay with leaving it the way you've got it.
I just want to make sure that I'm understanding, so you're talking about somebody who's retired and living off of retirement income, where they're getting $55,000 a year for a single person? Am I tracking correctly?
That's the that would be the most.
Right. But you want to reopen a budget where somebody who is actively working is making only a little bit more than that.
We're talking about the elderly exemption.
I understand.
And now I'm talking about the library, they're not the same thing.
I know it's not the same thing, but I'm trying
Fair
to
question.
understand why 55,000 is so little to you, but 65,000 is way too much.
For what? From the increase, a 50% increase? It's not a question of dollars and cents, and it's the increase. It's outrageous.
The increase doesn't matter to me at all.
She's making more than a fireman, a police, don't get me started.
She's actually not
It's
making more
really
than a
It's
policeman,
really a fair question. Actually,
not under the current, what we just,
yeah.
$28 and $32 as far as I know.
I was looking at the total
Didn't he say?
salary amounts, but I can,
But you can't compare police
said
officers to the
I know you can,
person who manages a $300,000 budget.
I'm just saying, when you said 55, in my head, I'm like, you were saying that's such a low number, we're talking about reopening a budget for not that much more than that, so I'm trying to understand in your mind what the difference is between the two. And it's about the percentage increase, it's not about the total amount of compensation.
In this case, the entire change in the library budget went,
Yeah.
it went,
I'm
It
sorry,
got
I'm
it.
sorry,
Yeah.
the
it's
subject,
irrelevant to the situation, this is not the same thing.
excuse me, the subject that we're dealing with right
Okay.
now is elderly exemption. And if, from what I'm hearing, there's a lot of disagreement maybe among the numbers.
So,
What I'm going to do is, I'm gonna draft a letter. It's gonna essentially be these numbers, and I'll bring it to the next meeting, and anybody that wants to join me and sign on with it, they'll be welcome at that point in time.
Well, that's
Other
what-
than that, people can,
yeah,
Is
What-
this,
the-
is
you
this coming under the purview of the budget committee, or is this coming under you personally?
I think it should be independent and separate from the
And then we
budget.
don't need to discuss it here then?
Yep. Okay, well, I think we've discussed it as far as we
I'm
can,
not,
anyway.
I'm just,
But I will, and I'll present it after the meeting, or I'll send a draft
although
around.
I would argue it's gonna affect the revenue that the town's gonna get.
Yeah, well, I think so too, but we're told that we don't have any say on that. So,
Jack, you asked the other day, the only reason I'm telling you what I did, is you asked us to think about it over the weekend,
Yep.
and that's just my opinion.
Yep.
That's all that is.
I hear. Okay, next meeting is a week from tonight, Monday, December 19th, 6 o'clock. We're gonna be
I'll do
doing
a thing.
school
You
and a
can
couple
bring them.
ceremonies.
packets.
Would you
Or
like
should
me
I
to bring
print my
packets?
own?
I can bring packets.
I mean, if you're gonna bring them, I'm not gonna bother to print them,
I will-
if you're not going
I
to
will-
bring them.
I will
won't
bring
print them.
packets for everyone.
Okay. and I
Lois,
won't
is there a
print them.
motion?
Motion to adjourn,
Second.
that's what I do best.
8:44, holy guacamole.
All in favor?
Letty? I
Aye.
think we gotta go around.
Aye.
But I think we know we're all done.
Adjournment?
Yeah.
Good night, Juliana.
This has been fun, I must say.
Record.
I wonder if she could hear us better. I could hear her better,
Yeah,
but I wonder how she could hear
well,
us.
we can ask her. That was the idea. Thank you for doing that.